Hey, welcome back.
What's
Welcome
up?
back.
What's up?
Got another great class planned for everybody. We're going to cover some cool stuff today. Hopefully everybody's is doing good. Everybody's okay. I don't know about you guys, but hopefully you got some rest after the retreat. Those who participated in the retreat. For the rest of you, hopefully business is becoming better. Hopefully you're getting your practice time in. Hey, you want to hear something strange I heard today?
What's up?
That I learned today? You know how people often claim they have a lot of business experience? They find out that experience doesn't make you better, reflection does. So you can have 5 years of experience and still suck. You can have 10, 20 years of experience and still suck. You can have a PhD or master's degree and still suck. But if you're not reflecting in that period in time, then that experience is almost compromised because of the lack of reflection. And so next time somebody decides to flex on you, like, I got 5 years in the industry, your experience means nothing. It's your reflection. And it's interesting because I think you can easily identify when people are reflecting or not, right? Because reflection is a certain type of person. It's a certain type of conversation, right? And so somebody who has experience, it's almost like it feeds into the ego and the narcissism to be able to say, I am because I have experience. And the reason I think I've always rolled my eyes at experience because I knew experience wasn't equal. And I think what brought it home for me is to find out that experience is not as valuable without reflection. Now, if somebody has 5 years of reflection, that's 5 years of growth, right? Because as you take in information, if you don't reflect on the application of new knowledge, like, you try it, like say, for example, you listen to the 5-10 Media whole class, and we give you this cool strategy or tactic on how to move forward on something. And as you decide to move forward, when you try to copy and paste it, the problem is that there's no such thing as a perfect duplicate. Because if you copy my strategy and you apply it to your world, there's different variables. And so you have to be the commander of the new application. And as you apply it, you have to adjust it and tweak it based upon the challenges that you're facing. So, but the way you really own the knowledge and gain control of the knowledge is when you apply it, you sit back, you analyze, you reflect, you adjust, you analyze, you reflect, you adjust, you receive feedback, you adjust, and so through that reflection process, you gain ownership of that strategy, right? And so a lot of times you'll find people who have jobs and they just do a job every day, and they think, oh, I am talented because I show up at this job every day. You're not talented because you don't really sit down and reflect. You just do. As long as you're doing without reflecting, then even if you have 10 years in any type of job, even if you're a doctor, if you're not reflecting, you're deteriorating, right? And so it's just interesting.
That's interesting.
We can kind of pull the carpet underneath some of this grandstanding around. I have 10 years experience. I have 20 years. I've been in this industry for 5 years. I went to Stanford. Okay, what was your reflection game like? And that now how you ask that question may require some nice maneuvering or some kind of investigating the person that you're about to make this gamble on. Now, I don't suggest you on Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving, you sit with your family members and you say, your cousin comes in the house and like, yeah, I got 6 years working at PG&E. You go, that don't mean shit. That's kind of shitty, right? That's like, now you weaponizing. You're like, you ain't did shit. Pass the turkey. Like that's kind of shitty, right? But if that cousin says, hey, I want you to invest in me, then it's time to go into get into some real thought. And the real thought is, hey, 6 years. So tell me about the 6 years. And tell me about, and you can tell when somebody's into reflection mode. It's how you talk. If you're not reflecting, you're almost just quoting base. So we'll get back into the base in a minute, but in life, knowledge is a base of knowledge, right? So for example, base may be, let's say I said, hey, Court, let's buy some ice cream for this elementary school. And you say, well, what flavor? I would say to you, well, let's look at what flavor of ice cream most kids at that age group usually eats. And if it says most kids, 70% of kids at this age group eat chocolate ice cream, then the base that I would say go buy chocolate ice cream. There may be some variations, but more than likely, most kids, you start with a base, right? And so you can get a job and they constantly download bases to you. And you kind of know how, just do this. And if people don't like this, do that. And this happens here, you do this. And you kind of operate on the base of everything, right? But base is no reflection. Because you don't know how to think outside the base into the variations, right? And that's where the reflection comes from, right? As well as when you share ideas, you can't go into depth. You kind of say, well, this is why we do this. And I say, but why? Where'd that come from? When do you not do that, right? What's the balance of that? That shows lack of ownership. And so quite often what you'll find is that if you learn how to ask the right questions, listen to people, they can tell you whether they just have experience with no reflection or experience with reflection. Because it's just when you talk to somebody who has experience with reflection, the level of the conversation, it's almost like they take you away from what you would see on television. And they almost tell you a story, you'd be like, I never saw it that way. They'd be like, yeah, and this is something else you wouldn't understand. This is something else you wouldn't see. And here's some different variables you wouldn't even take in consideration if you wasn't in my industry, because they're reflecting all the time. Where somebody who's base, they're just kind of, there's somebody who's not reflecting, they kind of hear you give me base responses, right? Almost like, this is what I do. Let me show you what I do. Let me show you what happens, right? As opposed to, even when you meet somebody who's new in the industry, right? They come in with base. A veteran who's really owning that industry will come in and say, well, yeah, this is what you do this, but it doesn't apply here, right? And that knowing how to take ownership of the knowledge is that's where your actual maturity comes from. But quite often we run around and we're constantly champion other people's experiences, not realizing some of those people are wolves in sheep's clothing. You know, I don't. It's not intentional. It's not mean spirited, but you're only good. You're only as good as your reflection. Like that's why you journal, right? Because you journal to reflect. That's why we always tell people, go journal, because we're trying to get you to reflect. But if you're just going through life having experiences without reflection, then you're only taking the top surface of those experiences. You're not actually understanding, taking the ownership or understanding context or relevance, right? You're not even engaged in those type of things. And so something I wanted to share that was kind of interesting was that experience without reflection. What's more important is that experience doesn't grow you. Your growth is not based upon experience, it's based upon reflection, which is crazy, right? Because in our culture, all we talk about is experience, right? So it's kind of crazy. Anyway, how you doing, man?
Doing all right.
Good. Well, you about to take the floor for a minute. I'm about to sit back and just sit back and chill and observe. Let's get into it. Let's jump into the pyramids and let's take over from here. It's a big ass water, by the way. God damn.
Marquita, I am going to be going to the bathroom today. Just
we might both leave at the same time. Marquita, you might have to come up here and start talking about something. Go ahead.
Okay, so some of you may have seen this pyramid who have been in this class more than a year. And so we're talking about this in the context of effectiveness. So effectiveness is a powerful word, meaning anything you set out to do in life, any goal that you have, the actions that you take towards achieving or receiving it, it all boils down to how effective you are at attaining it. What is your effectiveness? I come from an engineering spot, so when I was in tech, I was knee deep in math equations and processes and equations on how can all the workers, our processes, be more effective. Because the more effective you are, you take more advantage of the resources that you have. Meaning, we used to have this formula, meaning that said, I think it was like 2E x 0.5E, some shit like that. But what it means is your goal is to always push towards becoming twice as effective with half as much energy. So you want to get double the output with half the energy, and that's your goal. Is how can you figure out how to move in a way that's most effective? Some people, if they push 100%, they get 2% back. And there's some people who push 100% and get 400% back. What's the difference? The difference is their effectiveness, how effective they are in their moves. And so there's formulas within that. It's math equations. So in the context of entrepreneurship, this pyramid is called an ascension of effectiveness, meaning these are variables that you use as humans, because we use more than just numbers and electricity and math. We have to also use our emotions and our drivers and our motivators and things that help us to make things happen. So if you look at the foundation of effectiveness, below that foundational line is depression. And if any of you have ever been depressed or gone into some sort of depression, like I have, you really can't do shit. You may have all the desires in the world, but you can't pull yourself out of bed. You may close your eyes and wake up three days later, and you have done nothing, even though you had the desire. So having the desire alone is not enough. So in terms of effectiveness as an entrepreneur, below the line is depression. Once you hit above the line, the lowest level of effectiveness is motivation. That's the lowest level driver of effectiveness is motivation, which means the reason why it's the lowest level, and mind you, as we go through these, there's no judgment on any of them. None of them. It's not good or bad. It is what it is. The lowest level is motivation. Reason being is because motivation most of the time is external. Meaning it comes from the outside world. An example of motivation is, say, you go to a party, you ain't seen somebody in a long time, and they say, damn, you got big. Huh, okay. Fuck you. That's what you say in your head, motherfucker. But it's motivation, right? So some people take that and they go home and that it gets them started. They go in their refrigerator, toss all the bad shit out, start eating good, start working out, hitting the gym, running. It's a motivator. It's a low level motivator, but it comes from external. It's the stick. So if you guys know the term carrot and the stick, most of the time motivation is a stick. I read about a woman who became a successful entrepreneur, and they said, well, what was the start of your entrepreneurship? And she was like, I went up to my husband and I asked him for $10, and he said, what for? What for? Motherfucker, I will never ask you for money again. Motivator. Boom. She go out and she started her grind and started building her business. External motivation. So motivation comes from outside experience that helped shape you. Maybe you was poor as a kid, or these are all external motivators, which the reason why it's the lowest level is because most of the time they're out of your control. You can't control them. You have no control over them. Something happens that sparks you. You get fired from your fucking job, or somebody tells you can't do it, or you too stupid, or you too slow, or that's never going to work. Those are external motivations. Now, at this level, this is like paradise for entrepreneurs and a lot of people. They love this stage. They love to feel motivated because it's like a stick of dynamite inside them. Let's go. Let's rock and roll. Let's do this shit. I'm ready. And so the beauty of it is that it starts your momentum. The downfall of it is once that motivation, that external motivation subsides, then you have nothing to motivate you. You have no push. So that's what makes it low level. The thing is, that's why as you evolve up this pyramid, you got to understand you own your own experiences and stories. You want to control your narratives. That's why the next level is inspiration. Now, inspiration is cousins to motivation. It's emotional too. Motivation is all emotional. I'm gonna show you, or I'm gonna get in the gym. I'm gonna show. It's all emotional. Inspiration is emotional too, but most of the time, inspiration comes from inside. That's internal, and it's the goosebumps and the touchy feelies and the oh my God, and watching those inspirational videos of the person climbing up the mountain and like you could do it and all that, like that's what inspiration is, and that inspires you. When you see someone who comes from the same place as you and they give you, a little Will Smith clip or a little Eric Thomas clip or one of those clips where it just touches that bone, that little heart muscle inside you to get you going. Like, I could do this shit too. David Goggins, is one for me. David Goggins is a motherfucking monster, Black Navy SEAL, and he got videos where he just monsters through shit, and just watching it just inspires me. Oh, I could do it. I could do it too. And you get going. That's the carrot in terms of the carrot and the stick. That's the carrot. It's the good feelings, and it's also like it's the beginning of your learning curve ramp, right? When you hear of somebody's struggle, when you watched Pursuit of Happiness, and you seen the struggle and him and his wife funking, and she didn't believe in him, and you just see that's when you point to your wife, like, that's why you gotta believe in me, And at the end, where he gets the job and he gets that emotional cry, you can run through a motherfucking wall at that point, right? That's inspiration. Now, it's still slightly external because it comes from the external. But inspiration is another motivator for you to become effective, because sometimes you get going. Sometimes it allows you to get going. Now, when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's a similar vein. We got a similar energy. Like maybe, I want to start a business. I want to create something. I want to build something. Motivation and inspiration, they have their place, but a lot of us live here. A lot of us just live here. That's it. Most entrepreneurs live in those two spaces. They either are looking for ways to be inspired, or they're getting motivated by failures and all kind of bullshit. And they toggle. And here's another thing, it's a cold game, but most of the entrepreneurs who just live in these two spaces also play in depression a lot, because it's too much of a seesaw game. It's too much of a seesaw game in life and emotion. And you're trying to pump yourself up. And you need accountability partners. And if your accountability partner don't show up, then you ain't working out, or you ain't getting on the call, or somebody's not pushing you. Like you rely so much on external things to keep you going that life doesn't work like that, because there's rises and falls, and people fail you all the time. But once a person moves up out of the inspiration motivation phase, they go up to skill. Skill is where you start learning your trade. You start learning the game. You start learning, period. You start going after it. You start practicing. That's where that they call that the 10,000 hours starts going. Maybe you decide you want to be a chef or a cook or a caterer or whatever the business is, and you start practicing, and you get good. You got motivated enough, you got inspired enough, and now you're going after it, and you're practicing. And that first ramp up in practice is exhilarating. Why? Because from 0 to about 60%, it happens pretty fast. That ramp up from 0 to 60% happens pretty fast. So you get hella commendation about how good your shit is, or you get commendation about how much weight you've lost. And like that phase of that skill phase from 0 to 60% is a high. It's a high. And so you get in there, and your progress starts to feel good. The recognition kind of feels good. And so what happens once you start pushing through that 60 to 70%, sometimes you start tying your identity to it, because all the praise and things you start receiving feels good, and you start making money. You're making money. You went from not making money to making money. And in your mind, that's huge, right? So that's when all those variables connected to you, sometimes you can start tying your identity to it and being like, look, I'm the best. Nobody can do this shit without me. I'm the center of this shit, because your identity is tied to it. If somebody or Nana told you, hey, you need to get out of that position and hire someone for your position, you damn near get offended. Wait a minute, what? Can't nobody do it like me? That's as you're ramping up in your skill. When you get to the peak level of your skill, you start getting popular. That means whatever craft you have starts getting busy. People lining up now because you're in the 80s, 90 percentile of your skill level. And in your mind, you're reaching it. You're getting there. You're getting there. The problem is it's only 24 fucking hours in the day. It's only 24 hours a day. And it's only one you. And if you don't detach from that skill mindset, this is a technician's fucking paradise. If you don't detach from that space, that skill space, and keep rising up you keep ascending up that pyramid, you're going to be fucking stuck. Or you're going to get burnt out. Or you're going to crash because you're going to self-destruct and cannibalize your own business because of your ego. That's just the real shit. Most people, now, if the people get past the motivation and inspiration, motherfuckers get stuck at skill. They get stuck at skill. Not knowing how to parlay. Because in their mind, what else is there? I'm the best at what I do. I put in hella work. I only sleep 4 hours a day. I put in 20 fucking hours a day. I get it in. I show up every day. I put my best foot forward. Every single product that I make, I put my heart and soul and love into it. What the fuck else is there? Most people don't live beyond being at the height of their skill. It's fucking crazy. Because once you move past skill, you break that veil, and that's a thick ass line. Like, above skill, motivation, you can see inspiration because they share with each other. It's cousins. You know what I'm saying? Inspiration and skill, you can see that too. You know that you got to get good at something. But the line, the ceiling above skill is thick and dense. And most people can't even see it or know it exists. For 10 years of my entrepreneur life, I didn't even know there was anything above skill. Didn't know it existed. It wasn't until I stumbled upon other books that was like, oh shit, you mean I gotta do better than this? Because ego says, I work so hard. And when you say I work so hard, you're saying I quit. I can't do no more than this. And in my mind, there's nothing more than this. But above that, in effectiveness is strategy. Strategy is freedom. Strategy is freedom for a technician. Strategy is freedom for the person who's stuck at skill. And that's a manager's dream. A manager starts to organize and create strategy around the business in terms of what really is effective, what's working, what isn't, how can we improve this process? What can we do better in this place? Let's think about this. Hold on. Before we do anything, let's think about this. And what is the thinking? Strategy typically comes from, strategy is broken down into a few elements. The first element is intelligence. The intelligence of the person who's creating the strategy fucking matters, right? It just does. Speed, effectiveness, efficiency, short game and long game. So none of these are mutually exclusive or smarter or better. It's in this moment of me being an effective entrepreneur in my business, what is the best strategy in this moment? Strategy frees you. Because now you're like, oh shit, I don't even need to do that no more. Or how about this? Now, like I said, the line between strategy and skill is thick as fuck. So if your ego, if you have ego issues, strategy is going to be tough for you because you've developed a skill by doing things a certain way. And in your mind, it's the best way. So you being willing to divorce certain skill sets that you've developed and you got good at and you got praise for and you got love and you made money and now you can survive on your own shit. That's big. And everybody's around you telling you that's big. You have a gym? That's big. You don't need to do nothing else. But strategy, again, will get you stuck. There's a limit to strategy. Once you buck up against strategy, once you start thinking, once you get stuck in terms of managerial skill set, and you can't look at anything beyond strategy, you're fucked too. Now, you start to scale, but you can't think outside of minimal scaling if you don't have the last piece, the tip of that pyramid, and that's data. So at data, you're not even like the cool dude no more. It's hard to be. You're not. That swag shit and like all that street shit and hood shit, like it starts to fade because you look at the world so different. You can't just compartmentalize being a data thinker. You can't. Once you start thinking in terms of data, everything becomes data because it's such a powerful tool. The reason why we're in the phase that we're in this world with AI and Facebook and the meta universe and all those things, if you watch the documentary, is because of the accumulation of data on humans. And they understand that our human psychology and behavior is much different than we've ever put themselves out to be, or a person could tell a therapist. Because monitoring data it changes the game in terms of how to move your business. But once you start arriving in those spaces, the need for motivation and inspiration becomes much less. You just don't. You need it much less than you used to. When you just get in the game, like when you just get in this game, you're looking for it. You waking up, you doing the shit, you getting yourself together. But as you rise through the ranks of this pyramid, it becomes less a need. Not saying that you don't ever need it again. It's saying the way you've shaped your brain and your mind and how to think and your options and how to look at things with different optionality and strategies and data, you'll never be the same again. Now, data again is not like it's a broad word, right? If you look at data, it has to be accurate. So so the accuracy of your data is just as important as the data itself. Because if your data is inaccurate, then you may go down a fucking unknown path that end up not working for you. At the end of the day, not all data is not 100% accurate anyway. Like the book that we read now is like the map is not the terrain, right? So since the map is not the terrain, all data that you accumulate just gives you a piece, a signal, a clue about your target market, about your moves, about where you're going. But data is at the peak of this. Once you move in data, it's almost like you got superpowers. That's why certain individuals who accumulate certain amounts of wisdom based on experience and based on learning from experience, sometimes they feel like they seem psychic. They seem psychic. But in actuality, it's not that they're psychic, it's that they have over the course of their lifetime, they've accumulated data based on human behavior. So much so that when they see you and they hear your problems, you immediately start fitting into a category based on all the data that they accumulated, and they can predict your behavior. Hey, this is about to happen. This already happened, huh? Yeah, how'd you know? Yeah, because and so if you do this is going to happen. If you don't, this is what's not going to. They almost seem psychic. It's not that they're psychic. It's because they play the data game, not the emotional motivation game. If you get caught always playing the emotion and motivation game, you'll end up getting knocked the fuck out. You end up getting knocked out. You'll get in the ring. You won't be afraid to get in the ring because somebody can pump you up to get in the ring, but you'll end up getting knocked the fuck out. So basically, if you have this strategy and you're a boxer, you got motivation and inspiration to get in the ring. That takes guts. Shit, that takes guts. But let's teach you some skill. You learn uppercuts, overhand rights, a little bit of defense, and then all of a sudden you get good. You first start with the pads and coaches you being really jerky with the pads, and 6 months later you look like you dancing, bang, 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 duck, duck, bang, bang, duck. It looks beautiful. Now you got confidence. But if you get in there and just start swinging, even though you got skill, and you don't look at your opponent and know who you're fighting and come up with a strategy, you're fucked. You're fucked. Now, and then if you don't look at the data to say, hold on. Every time that person fights in Madison Square Garden, he goes a distance. Doesn't matter who his opponents are. That's data. So I need to prepare to go the distance with this motherfucker. Like, those small minor details matter. When you start thinking in all those places, then that's when you become powerful. And that's how you become the most effective as an entrepreneur.
So I wanted Court to go over this because I wanted to add layers to some neuroscience, behavioral science, and then I want to dive deeper into strategy and data. And what inspired this was, what was it? I think it was on Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday, or no, it was Monday. Monday, I had to go to the gym. And I didn't want to go to the gym. I did not want to work out to save my life. Historically, if just a soft wind or a little bit of life got in the way, I would have detoured as fast as hell. And as I'm going to the gym, I'm having all these emotional, what they call, now let's turn the book, so what he talked about, engineering effectiveness. I need you to flip the page to neuroscience. Neuroscience is called affective realism, which is all these emotions that dictate your behavior. And so a lot of times we make a lot of decisions based upon emotional responses. And my body started to have a chain of emotional responses that said, dude, you don't want to do this today. It's late, kind of sore, you're tired, you ain't rested from the retreat. It just started running a list, looked like Santa Claus list, just zoom, and just reasons why I shouldn't be there. And at that moment I laughed and said, yep, here we go again. And I said to myself, fuck, this could be a hell of a class. And let me tell you why I said this could be a hell of a class. Is because some of us forget that motivation is not enough. And let me stay with this for a minute before I get to the other layers. Nana, I'm about to join the gym. I'm excited. I'm about to lose weight. I've got this trainer. They got me on this new diet. You're in a motivation space. The problem is that goes away 100%. And it goes away within like 1 or 2 months. And the reason many of you guys never achieve goals, never move the needle, because your whole motivator and your whole motivation is all based upon, your whole movement of life, your plans of life, your dreams, your inspiration is based on these ideas of motivation, right? And so what happened is that we don't know the energy is going to deteriorate. And so when people run up to me and they say, Nana, oh my God, my business, oh my God, my money, oh my God, art, oh my God, these things are so amazing, and they get so over-invested in the motivation, this is one of the reasons I have tendency to pull back. Because I'm like, I don't think you get it. Because at some point, you're going to have to go way past motivation. And at some point, I can't see you. If I sing your video inspiration, it won't have zero impact on you. At some point, it'll be zero-sum game. And if you don't have a deeper drive, reason, purpose, commitment, and understanding, the chances of you surviving is close to none, right? Let me share some neuroscience with everybody. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow that won a Nobel Peace Prize. And in the book, he talks about heuristics. And heuristics are these common things our brains, like when we see something, we quickly make these decisions because we have this what we call the common sense of our brain, right? What they discovered is that most people have a list of just common sense selections. So if something happens, I'm gonna always pull these certain selections, right? And until I upgrade that heuristics, more than likely I'll always pull the same selection. What they also discovered is that it's this thing called affective realism. So affective realism is most human beings, when we make a decision, this is what human beings do. Human beings by default are, number one, we're lazy. We're a lazy animal because we want to preserve energy. We're energy because we're really into energy conservation because as human beings we need a lot of energy. And so our brain eats up so much energy, the brain doesn't want to burn any unnecessary energy. So the human being, this is important, this is what I'm about to say here. The human being will always take the easiest path of least resistance because our brain does not like a lot of resistance. So when a human being makes decisions, the least path of resistance is our emotions. So a lot of times I say, hey, here's a business strategy for you, or go shopping for something that you may need, or make an investment, or raise these kids, or marry this person, or buy this house, or make a plan for your life, or go to this college, or take this job. What your brain have a tendency to do, most people, almost all the time, will say this, which one feels better? This is when I used to go against the gut conversation so much, because a lot of times we use the gut as a justification for emotional decision making, which is the most laziest path. Now, the path that would enhance your life, when necessary, is which one, instead of going which one feels better, you think about which one is better by processing thought. But thought uses up so much energy. So most people would default back to their emotions, not their thought. This is important what I'm saying here. So when you're faced with a challenge, you're faced with a decision, you're faced with change, you're faced with starting your own business, your default position is going to be which one feels better as opposed to let me think about which one is better. You see the difference? Our brain doesn't want to do that. It's just almost too much work. So, the reason, going back to your point, that we get stuck in motivation and inspiration is because psychologically, that's most comfortable to the human existence. This is why some people never change. Because it's easier just to feel your way through life than to think your way through life. Now, here where it gets difficult. Most jobs that you receive, the thinkers design the environment for the least amount of thought to maximize output. Let me say this again. Most jobs that you work at is designed for the lowest amount of thought and the highest amount of output. Not all jobs, but most jobs are. Because they realize that if you ask human beings to show up every day and do a lot of thinking, the production level drops tremendously. So if I give you a title give you a particular title inside of a company, and this is what we were talking to you about, Kaja, the other day, but I'm getting into it more scientifically. You don't realize the thought has been removed from you, from your job. So much of the thought is removed from your job that all you're really doing is they're programming you heuristically just to pull certain levers. And then you go based upon, and then everybody starts to rally around their emotions and their feelings. But being an entrepreneur and dealing with reality is so it's counterintuitive. Okay, let me get into counterintuitive because that's not to move up the pyramid. So let's go back to working out. I'm going to bring this all the way home. So let's go back to working out. Motivation, I'm just getting started. Inspiration, I'm probably there for about 2 or 3 months. This is the people that drop off in the New Year resolution. Mm-hmm. Skill, I can last about a year. Strategy is when I start looking at how to last longer than a year, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Or last even a decade. So strategy means I learn how to train properly. I learn my body limitations. I learn how to breathe a certain kind of way. I learn how to eat a certain kind of way. I learn what time I better go to the gym. Like don't go home after work, go straight to the gym. I learn wear only these kind of shoes, otherwise I can hurt my knees, which could put me out. If it puts me out, I probably won't go back, right, for a long time. You learn the strategy all these different strategies. You learn the skill on how to stay in the gym. So that can last you about 5 or 10 years. And a lot of people, like you said, can get stuck in that and working out. Let's go to strategy level. Strategy is when you start to understand the long-term versus the short-term engagement of working out. And it's a different way of approaching it. So for example, if I'm looking at working out, I'm thinking, okay, how do I train so I can still do this 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, right? What type of gym should I train at that I would stay there consistently? So I prefer this kind of gym. As opposed to gym, I prefer to work outside. I'm going to get into biking for now, but later I might shift into this. Data is living in the world of uncertainty and being able to function. Data means that you don't have a feedback loop. A clinical psychologist is in a realm of skill and strategy. Data is somebody who says, this is how I feel, but doesn't mean this is how the world works. And I can still move in a world where everybody have different perspectives and be effective. So when you learn data, you learn about the human body and the limitations of the human body, how human body functions at 40, 50, 60, 70s, how the bones work, how the muscles work, how everything. So at this point, you're now designing your workout not only are you skillful, not only do you have a strategy of how you're going to work out, but data means that now you understand the limitations of your human body, your age, your gender, your genes. You start to design everything. So at the end of the day, you're playing for the long-term commitment of your full body health, right? But when you're in motivation, inspiration, skill, strategy, and data doesn't even cross your fucking mind. So the reason many of you guys can't start things, because when you have to go from motivation and inspiration, you have to use a lot of energy to get to skill. Literally, you have to use a lot of body energy to go to skill mode. To go to skill mode, it's easier for your brain to do what it knows to do, what it's always done, and survive, than to do something that they can possibly engage in that they may fail in. So your brain burns extra energy because of fear, learning, curiosity, exploration, disappointment, failure. Your body's burning so much energy while still trying to have a relationship with other human beings. And so it's almost, we're designed not to change as human beings. Change is an almost superhuman engagement. It just is. So here's the other thing. If you want to operate in areas of strategy and data, and there's a different degree of it, by the way, but in areas of strategy and data, when you learn to move in a world where your perspective is no longer the dominant perspective, and you have to let go of all the things that bring you security, that's data, then what to do won't feel good. Running a business doesn't feel good. Like, if you're at the lower level, like you just at the front desk, you're doing transactions, that almost feels normal. But if you even get to sales it's not natural in your feeling. If you get to higher levels of business strategy, it doesn't feel like, oh, I should, like for example, you see in social justice, people say, oh, this is right, this is good, this is bad. And they pretty much use inspiration and motivation to design social justice. Because it's based upon, I see something I don't like, how do I feel about that? And then I go, I feel this is bad. I get on the microphone and say, hey, everybody, I think this is bad. And I put a little bit of fancy words behind it. And because we all tap into our affective heuristics, that's what it's called, affective heuristics. Look it up if you don't believe me. Affective heuristics, we'll instantly go, yeah, that makes sense to me. But what we did is we transferred our feelings and we put an intellectual model around it. You guys get where I'm going with this? So a lot of conversations you hear in your community, a lot of conversations you hear from your family, your culture, television, is just the transfer of emotions by putting it in a frame of intelligence. It's not thought out. It's just, I felt this, and you go, I thought about what you just said, but you know what you really said is, I thought about what you just said, Nana, and as I thought about it, I feel good about what you just said, so that makes sense to me. You didn't sit down and use first principle thinking. You didn't look at research. You didn't look at any type of anything behind the context. You didn't look at if I was being motivated by incentives. You didn't look at anything besides, yeah, that felt about right. Well, the problem with that is that most of your feelings that you have, your natural affective heuristics, is designed to keep you poor. Most of your feelings so all these complex decisions you're making every day, you're compounding a lot of decisions that you have never thought out, that when you add those decisions up, they're designed to keep you where you're at. Even when you think you're venturing into something new. This is why a lot of times you will try something that's really difficult, starting a business or taking on a certain task, and the reason you fall back to where you started, to your base, is because your form of decision making is more emotional than thought. So, this is so important. There's a couple things, this is going to get elementary now. In order for you to be able to apply thought in critical decision making, you have to have energy to apply to it. It requires energy to produce a thought, to produce change. However, this is going to sound crazy, I feel like we're doing a loop again. If you're not exercising and eating and sleeping, the chance of you changing is close to none. If you're not exercising, you're not eating, and you're arguing, the chance of you arguing, yes, fighting, the chance of you changing your life is close to none.
Agreed.
If you're not eating, sleeping, and if you're not exercising, eating, and sleeping, arguing, and living in a hostile, loud environment, pow, pow, I don't give a fuck you, man. The chance of you changing is close to none. This is why you get stuck in the hood. This is why the hood doesn't change. The hood is a group of people who are exchanging affective heuristics, which is thoughts, emotions masked as thoughts, and they cannot change or expand or even think about those ideas because all their energy is used up in other places. This shit is not.
Hey, this shit is. All right, check this out. When he talked about emotions, you get to strategy. If you move through the space of motivation, inspiration, skill, and you play in that emotional space, even when you get to strategy, some of your strategies will be tainted by emotion. And that's why you said you can last only 5 to 10 years, because sometimes your skill can be so high, your motivation, inspiration can be so high that you may have a flawed strategy, but it may take 10 years for it to crash. But with data, you are constantly getting feedback loops that some may not be gentle on your emotions because they just may be what they are. You know what I'm saying? I was thinking about when you was talking, I called him like, yo, I may have to sit down and meet with my enemy. Why your enemy? Because this motherfucker tried to kill me in business. That's why. Well, let's try to think of it differently. And he starts going through it. Sit down with him, ask him, does he want something to drink? Like, treat him like he your homie when he get in there. That's motherfucking so counterintuitive. You tried to kill my business, motherfucker? Like, damn near want to lock the door and turn the things down, right? Yeah, but guess what? We sitting face to face. Would you like something to drink? No, hold on. Would you like something to drink? Because data is telling me, because we looked at the data, and data is like, hey, no, this would be an upside in business if you do this. Like, here's some pluses. What are negatives? We'll just do this, and then they won't really be negatives, but it seemed like you should do it. From a business perspective, that's data. Oh, you're right. So that's why if you play the data game, it ensures almost you can click back in to longevity, because you're detaching yourself from your emotions and maybe potential emotional strategies.
Yeah, if you ever listen to Warren Buffett share his ideas, he shares his pure strategy of how he makes money in the stock game. But most people can't hear it because they end up fusing their emotions and changing the words that came out of his mouth. If you learn to think from, and the reason you do that is not because it's your nature. It's not stupidity. It's your nature. Human beings by default are lazy animals. There's a reason if you're walking through a forest, and let's say me and Court and Marquita walked through the forest and we carved away. There's a reason you'll stay on that same path and you won't break off into the bushes yourself and carve another way. Because we prefer to take the path of least resistance as human beings. Think about that. Think about the last time you went hiking. Did you just walk into the shrubbery, climb into the grass, walk to the puddle? You stayed where the trails were, right? Or even, it could be a narrow trail. You can take the big trail, the little trail, the rocky trail, but you stay close to the trail. Rarely do we say, man, fuck the trail. And if you do say fuck the trail, you can almost feel the emotional, like, oh my God, it's going to be so much. Oh, this is going to be so fucking much. Or, give another, let's make it a city kid. When I was a kid, this is amazing now that I think about it. We used to walk back and forth to school. I used to go to Markham and Whittier. So when we went to Markham, we used to take all these shortcuts. We hopped all these fences, climbed all these trees, and it was like a venture to us, right? But why is it most kids don't do that? Why do most kids walk on the sidewalk? Because for human beings, it's designed for the least amount of friction, and guess what human beings do? We follow it. It's that simple. So business is you carving new ground that does not exist. But some of you guys are trying to stay on the pathway and carve new ground at the same time. You got to make a decision which one you want to do. You can't take a path of emotional heuristics and walk a path of thought. Now, you can't think all the time because you will burn out. But you have to protect your energy, increase your energy, and then know when to say, hey, this is what I feel, but now let's think about it. Now, Daniel Kahneman did offer a solution. He said, master base knowledge and quality of information. Let's go back to base knowledge. So we give the example of there's a group of kids that like ice cream, right? We found out that most kids that age like chocolate ice cream. So I tell you, hey, the best bet to make a move forward is buy chocolate ice cream. The way you upgrade your natural heuristics and your emotional heuristics is you're more likely going to be effective heuristics than thoughtful. It's just more like that's more of a human thing because we just don't have that much energy. So what you'll find is that what he said was what you want to do is improve your base. Always upgrade your base. What are most people doing in this scenario here? What are most people doing in this particular culture? What are most people doing in this particular culture? The more you upgrade your base, the faster you can make heuristic decisions. The second thing is that the only time you change your base is if you have high quality information that distorts your base. So if somebody says, hey, I heard that there's a group of kids that like avocado ice cream, you'll say, wait a minute, what? Avocado, I don't make sense. Yeah, I know 5 kids. You'll say, well, 5, that's not scalable. That's not a legitimate number. I can't use 5. 5 is not a legitimate number. You're talking about most kids. You just said 5. Or my friend has a son. He loves avocado ice cream. That's not information for me. Right. But the only way I'm going to upgrade my heuristic base is if I get enough data back that says, oh, kids of this new generation now want vanilla ice cream. They don't like the chocolate ice cream because when 9/11 happened, they saw this certain color that primed them to now like vanilla ice cream. So now I have a reason to change my base, right? You should become conscious of your base of thought. Many of us don't even know we have a base of thought. How do we look at the world? The reason you want to constantly upgrade your base because you don't have the convenience of always having time to think. And when you don't have time to think, as you upgrade your base of thought, and even if it's emotional, you make better decisions because you have a richer base. And you only alter that base when you have quality information, not you got into a conversation and this guy told me. That's not a solid base of thought. Although in our community, that's a very popular way to think, which is, I saw on this television show, these 6 people at Netflix walked out, so Dave Chappelle's getting canceled by everybody.
And he's not.
What?
He's not.
So it's if this became too complex for you, let me make it really simple for you so you can stay with some simple basics. One, when you become motivated on anything you're going to do, it means nothing. It's initiation. It's like, yes, you need a spark to start a fire, but the spark is not the fire. Mm-hmm. Let's be very clear. So if you got a spark and you say, no, I'm about to start a smart burn. I'm about to burn up this whole 6 yards or 60 yards of land to prep the land. If you spark that match, I'm not going to get excited until the fire gets started. Mm-hmm. Simple. Don't assume because you're excited and you're motivated and you're inspired at the beginning of the year to start your business, start working out, there's going to be a change. It probably won't be. You got to go past. You got to get past. And one of the things that helps you get past that is having a greater purpose. And that's getting into that. That's a combination of skill and strategy, right? Also, knowing how to do it correctly. You go into the gym, you don't know what the fuck you're doing, you get zero results, you're hurting yourself, you're out of that damn gym fast as anybody. So you got to have that foundation of skills. Mm-hmm. But at some point, you have to work on your strategy as well, right? Now, next thing you want to take away from this is that by default, when you make most of your decisions, it's just based upon do I like it or not. That's it. Full of biases, full of manipulation, full of influences you don't even remember, full of limited information. I feel good about that. I don't like that. That means nothing. Now, it's okay if you go to buy a jacket tomorrow, you're like, I like this jacket. Okay, who cares? No loss, no harm. But if you're about to make a decision with your life, your children, your business, your significant other, the house you're about to purchase, any critical decision you're about to make, know that if you say, I like it and I just feel, for some reason I feel good about this, run away from that. Stop accepting that as a form of brilliance. That's your lazy default. We just learned to make it sound sexy in this modern earthly age. You know, my chi told me I should feel through this. You're fucking lazy. Sit down. This is real.
Yeah. Here's a deal too. Let's go with your analogy. If you had a spark and you started your fire, you started your match, and then you lit up this field and you started burning this forest, and it's gaining momentum, and now you're using the wind and you're using other elements to help expand this fire out, and all of a sudden it starts raining. Your whole shit goes out and you go into depression. You're at the bottom. If you try to use the wind and strategy at that moment, shit won't work. Start with the spark again. You may need to spark because most of us, as we know from the trauma retreat, most of us black folks, we have mild to moderate depression on a constant basis. So that means we're swimming around these spaces right now. Let's just keep it 100. We're swimming around these spaces. So if you build some momentum and you find yourself in depression, don't try to go back, start with the same momentum you had when you started. All that's going to do, it's wasting your time. Start with your spark. What took me so long to come back was that in my mind, it was million, I'm at zero, let me get back on my horse and start at $1 million idea. And I was trying these $1 million ideas for a year with no results because I was depressed and below the line. So I'm like, okay, stop. Let me start with, I can do this. I love myself. I believe in myself. Let me start back with my spiritual connection, because inspiration, the root word is in spirit. That means that's where you also tap into your religious beliefs. That's why it becomes a foundation for you. Because hopefully, if you do crash, if your inspiration in spirit, if you are in spirit strong enough, meaning in your connection with your God is strong enough, you crash there. And you could just get back up and then get on skill. If that relationship, you're having trouble with it, you fall straight through that floor and go back down to depression. So I'm like, let me start with, I could do this. motivation. Let me get in spirit. Let's get my spiritual foundation strong so that if this shit ever happens again, I know I'm not tied to it. Skill. I'm not tied to this shit. I'm me and I love who I am. Broke, rich, don't matter. I'm dope as fuck. Let me iron that out. Then let me work on skill. Let me climb up. So once I start taking it piece by piece, that allowed things to build organically. I spent a whole year running in circles. So if that's where you are, or if you see the game like that, like I want to get to data. I remember the last time we talked, Tone was like, okay, so I want to get to data. How do I get to data? How do I get to data fast? Like, Tone, chill. Like, let's get you, you know what I'm saying? So don't use this tool as like a race to get up at the peak of this pyramid, because you're going to use them all. You need them all in order to be highly effective.
You just know that at the bottom of the pyramid, it's least effective. Mm-hmm. You know it's temporary. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, so we sent out an offer for a new employee for Fighting Media. And it's a Latino man with a PhD. And he's a researcher, heavy hitter, young dude, proud Chicano. So I come out of my room today, because I just finished the offer email, which is to meet in person, give an offer, then send them an official offer letter. So I come out my room and I'm like, yeah, man, babe. I was like, we just sent out an offer. She's like, what happened? I was like, I told her who it is. She's like, that's real cool. And I was like, yeah, it feels cool. It feels cool. But I tamed my emotional responses. You might think, why are you taming your emotional responses? I got a journey in front of me. There's a whole bunch of things to lock out. If I start to tell myself a false story down here at this motivation level, I can almost poison skill, strategy, and data. So at this point, cool. We got past the next stage. What's the next stage? What's the next stage? Because at the end of the day, I can turn that story up so strong in my mind that at this point I'm trying to force everything into my story. And this is when I start to betray my business. So I have to learn how to say, and you're in a motivation space, how much work at a gym? Your brain is instantly going to, okay, what's it going to take to stay in this gym? I want to work on losing weight. Okay. Mm-hmm. How many people you've seen get hella fat off of motivational, inspirational diets? I'm going to do this smoothie diet. I'm going to do the Atkins diet. I'm going to do whatever my friends are doing in the office this week diet, right? They don't even think about what is the long-term impact of that diet. What is the data on that diet? Have you read the data for yourself? That diet might work for Court because of his body shape, his age, and his lifestyle. You apply that same diet to me, and I may actually get fatter, right? Or I can end up doing damage where my body goes through such a shock that it builds up a new resistance to the point that now I got to work 10 times harder than I would have if I just would have started off on the right path, right? Psychologically, what does it do to me, right? And because at the end of the day, I get to the point where I drop some weight, I look kind of cool, but because I didn't think about long term, I get caught up, I go buy hella clothes, and then I balloon back up, and now I'm hella depressed. Because I didn't lower the impact of motivation and inspiration to say, hey, you can be inspired, you can be motivated. That shit is not the journey. That's just the spark and inspiration is probably you walking up to the fire and putting your hand and getting ready to hand it down to the bush and light that bush on fire. Skill is where do you light that bush so it stays lit? Mm-hmm. Like if it's a if you're a kid, you might go down and start lighting all kind of spaces, and the shit never stays lit, or it goes too wild and starts to burn up the whole fucking forest, right? Skill is how do you do it? Strategy is how do you do it and when do you do it? Data is knowledge of what is actually going to happen and the science of what happens and things you do not control and how do you align with that. Let me give you a story. They found out that firemen, the longer a fireman is a fireman, the better they become. And the reason the better they become is like they make these, when they say better they become, it means they're able to make faster decisions and even predict what's going to happen in the future. You say, wow, how is that possible? Well, because the rule of fire never changes. And the longer they engage fire, the more they readjust their base, the heuristics. So now instead of them having to think about, the fire just did this. What should I do next? It's on their base, and it fires off instantly, right? And so, and here's the other thing with fire. Fire is an instant back feedback loop. You fuck up, you get burned. You do it right, you go home, right? So you get this fast feedback of a consistent experience, and you become better over time. Psychologists, on the other hand, doesn't work that way. Because psychologists, quite often, if I'm working with court, and I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm working with court, well, first thing is that my feedback loop is distorted. Because why he gets better, if he's getting better or not getting better, I can't tell if my work is impacting him because he has all these other factors in his life that can impact him as well. So I'm not sure if what I'm applying works or not, right? In addition to that, if he does or does not get better, I'm only working with one person at a time. So I don't have enough data to say this idea actually works, right? Where say something like with 510 Media, we get a chance to work with large groups of people, push information, receive it back, push information, receive it back, and we should say, okay, this one works this way, this one doesn't work that way, right? Mm-hmm. And so part of becoming good at business is as you gain experience through reflection, remember that, the key word is reflection. As you gain experience through reflection, meaning that something worked, why did it work? Not it worked, move on to the next. It didn't work, why did it not work? If you're not reflecting on your moves that you're making weekly, by default, you won't improve because you have a poor feedback loop.
Hey, let's go back to when Nana talked about emotions. How long do they last when they purge through you? A few seconds, 7 seconds, right? So if emotions pass through you and it's temporary, that's the same way you use motivation. You use it just as temporary as those 7 seconds to counteract feelings, because it's a 7-second stick to get you to move. So here's an example. We both got a similar story, but let's take Nana's example. When he had a bully, and he came in the house, and mom had a decision to make to tell you to go fight that bully, right? If she used inspiration, she said, Nana, you could do it. You could do it. I believe in you. I believe in you. Wasn't strong enough because the fear wall is so high that carrot, that inspiration, ain't gonna do it. I seen you fight before. Now, you're a good fighter, Nana. Fuck that. The fear wall's too high. You know what I'm saying? Okay, look. Here's a strategy. You're going to go out there, and then you're going to push him, and then he going to move, and then he going to move. He's too fucking scared. Fuck all that shit. I'm going to hit you with something tactical that's going to make you feel more pain than the potential pain you think you're going to feel out there. I'm going to give you, that's motivation. Instant, bang.
That's leverage, and it's incentive. It's
a leverage. So it's a quick emotion. You're like, oh, shit. Your brain does the math immediately.
Quick as fuck.
Okay, I'm out. So there's certain times when you got to get yourself up out of there, but it's a 7-second thing. It's super temporary.
And here's the other thing too. That story kind of threw me out because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna slap the shit out of me. Tell me to go out there and fight. I went there and fought Reggie like I ain't never fought nobody a day in my motherfucking life. But it also helped me come into, it helped me face a degree of fear, right? That I could have never gotten past. And I think we do it with our kids in sports, where something, and they're being challenged, you tell them, no, go back in there. To what the coach tell you to do. I don't give a shit what he just said to you. Yep. And in the end, you're helping your kids face something that will help that child grow. Where if you just start to put your arms around a child like, oh, come home, you don't have to deal with that. You're actually stunting that child's growth, right? And so, powerful ass story. I want you guys to understand, like, effective heuristics is natural. It's not. Don't go home and try to weigh in if it's smart or dumb. Effective realism is how you manipulate people. Once you know the other side of this, it's a cold fucking game of manipulating people. Because that's where all the anchoring and the priming and the framing and all these manipulative tools is because they tap it into your emotions. And they get your emotions primed, you won't even tap into your thought. If you go back to thought, so when you buy a car, if you apply just pure thought and tell your emotions fuck off, you can run that salesman into depression, right? Because once you go into the data side, but what happens is when you go in there, you do that test drive. He's tapping into emotional, inspirational spaces, and it can become so fucking rich that you won't even give your thought a first chance. And here's where it goes crazy. This is what's going to fuck you up. So, because some of you guys are going to try to leave here and apply these ideas immediately to your friends and family. But this is what human beings do that is so masterful. They will make a decision on motivation and inspiration, like if you went to go see Les Brown, Tone Vic. But they make a decision on inspiration and motivation, but then they will articulate it almost like it's data and strategy. Justify the shit out of it. So this is what's cool about it. This is what stops you from getting help from your peers. Because you'll come into a room with your peers, and we saw this at the retreat. I would challenge somebody in a space of motivation and inspiration or some type of emotional space they're in, and they'll go to argue it. And I just stay with them for a little while. Before you know it, they're like, oh, shit. Because in the end, you're a master at articulating poor decisions. Because let me tell you why. Here's your incentive, and incentive is a dangerous weapon. And one of these days we'll teach a class on incentive, but it's a dangerous weapon. Your brain hates cognitive dissonance. And so your brain doesn't want to say, I made a bad decision and I'm a good person. It says, I'm a good person, so the decision I made must be a good decision. And when I tell you it's a bad decision, your brain goes, oh, so if I said it's a bad decision, I must also say I'm a bad person. Neither is true, right? Your brain it can't handle that. So the way you get caught up in the distortion in your brain is when you make a bad decision and you make an emotional decision and somebody challenges it, you're saying to them, you can't tell me I'm bad. I know I'm a good person. Don't challenge my points. I'm being offended because you're trying to call me bad. That shit fucked up. Now, let me plug Hope for a second. So I was talking to my team, and Marquita, our hidden marketing manager, pulled me aside and said, Nana, what's the plan for next year? I got to move on it. That's really true talk. And I said, well, Marquita, one of the things I want to get rid of all the language that says a year of hope. She said, well, I said, first of all, ain't nobody taking the class for a year. Everybody's taking it for more than a year. That's one. But number two, it's undermining the value of the class. So what do you mean? The value of hope is to help you create a solid base and protect that base. When you come here, you have a base of communication, a base of people that you're talking to, and everybody's upgrading their base. So now, everybody, as you guys stay together, your base, that regular public base is down here, but hope base can come all the way up here. That means that the rate of success will be way higher from this base than if the base was down here. You guys see what's going with that? So it's like when you're an entrepreneur and you isolate yourself, your base becomes this new base down here. So you're constantly being poisoned, or bad ideas are constantly being reinforced through effective heuristics. And so in order for you to have a rich base to make decisions from, you have to have a base that's constantly using thought to upgrade and have integrity in sharing new ideas and strategies. You guys get where I'm going with this? And so if you go home and you isolate yourself, your failure is tied to your isolation. In order for you to improve, you have to join a group that helps you increase your base. Because if you rely upon yourself, it's the same as if I said, let's dig a hole through this mountain, and I give you a shovel by yourself, and I go sit down. Well, come back 20 years from now at your death, and you may have got a quarter way through it. But if you join a group of people who are digging, you might get there by next year. You guys get where I'm going with this? And so that's why, as herd animals, it's important who's your base. Because we are unconsciously always sharing emotional ideas and thoughts. Now you guys see what I said to you guys, that the reason you're stuck in slavery mentality is because you're passing slave ideas masked as thought that are really nothing but emotions. You see how powerful this shit is? That you think you're thinking, but all you're really doing is justifying. You think you're thinking, but what you're really doing is just justifying. And when I come along and say, hey, let me challenge that idea, you say to yourself, because of cognitive dissonance, you say, if you challenge my thought, you're challenging me.
Cognitive dissonance is so powerful. That's the reasoning that people have when they follow cults and they predict dates and the dates don't happen. And then the media says, well, what the fuck you gonna do now? And they say, no, it was supposed to happen that way. It was God giving us more time to save people like you. That's how powerful cognitive dissonance is. They don't want to tie their being bad and their being wrong to their self-worth so bad that they'll continue to justify behavior. My boyfriend beat me up because he loves me, and I deserved it. Like, that's because I chose you and I locked in to choosing you, then I accept whatever the fuck comes with it. So that's why moving with data is so important, because the data says, you're gonna die, data says 9 out of 10 in a similar relationship die. They get killed. Or 4 out of 5 does this. So the numbers don't look too good. I might need to make a different decision. That's why the word poison is dope, because too much emotion streaming through that pyramid poisons everything. Data is in its purest form. That's what makes data beautiful.
You adjust your emotions to data. Data doesn't just accept emotions.
Exactly.
And so, okay, give you an example. Something I just discovered recently. So me and Mashama had a discussion about 7, 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, and we were discussing open office versus cubicles. And so I was like, yo, I think I like open office more. He's like, yeah, as a designer, I think I like open office. Cubicles kind of suck because they kind of put you in a box. Now, if you're looking at skill, strategy, and down, that argument is really an emotional decision. If you start just to go from strategy down, you're in emotional space. To go to data, you have to say, what is the history of open offices? What's the history of closed offices? Why do human beings like one versus the other? And psychologically, what are you giving up? And is there a psychological design and a compromise? And what you find is that open houses are good for human beings. You know why? If you're cooking dinner and you can see your kids, less energy. Remember, because at the end of the day, make sure, just remember, bring me back to less energy, because it's a very important point for business. But so you're at home, you're cooking dinner, and you see your kids, and you say hi to your husband, and you watch the TV, less energy, right? As opposed to being in the kitchen, having to run around, run back, run around, run back. And originally, the reason houses were designed, Victorian houses were designed a certain kind of way, because of keep protecting heat. So they had all these rooms compartmentalized, so if heat got in that room, you close all the doors and you keep the heat in as long as you could, right? But then when heating got better, and to reduce less energy, you open the house so people can reduce less energy to move through the house, less obstacles, a combination of reasons, but you produce less energy with an open house plan. An open office plan actually eats up more energy because it takes away from your focusing. You got to try to cut things out. People's attitude starts to eat up your energy, and so it takes down rate of production.
I know that one.
Right? And so at the end of the day, but if you listen to a common popular trend, the myopia trend in our lifetime has been open office, openoffice.com. Everybody's doing open office. You need to get with it, right? Because you don't realize that if you don't own data, you're just following trends. And if the trends of the culture is not designed to enhance you and your culture or your gender or your age group or whatever, you will follow this trend to your own destruction because you don't have the data of history. Because you can't feel data. Data's not something you can't say, I feel now you're not in data. You're not in data. You can have a little bit of strategy in your feelings, but there's no data in feelings. Data is, if you study war, like I've been reading a book on war, right? Big ass novel on war. One of the best books I read this year. I've got some great books. I have a list of great books. And you listen to the way war works. And one of the things he pointed out in war is that if you look at war mathematically as a civilian, you almost think you can decide who's going to win the war. This team has the most money, they have the biggest weapons, the most advanced technology, the most soldiers. They're going to win the war. He said, but war doesn't respect math. This is where data comes in. War says, if this fighter understands that terrain better and he's a better fighter than these fighters with all these weapons, with all their training, and he doesn't own this terrain, this small group can disrupt this big group.
Vietnam.
Afghanistan.
Right?
And so at the end of the day, data says something that's counterintuitive to our experiences. If you go to war and you talk to us, the reason soldiers come home and often can't stand civilians is because they deal with the most harshest reality that's counterintuitive to like everyday life of a civilian. So when you're trying to make a decision in this world, you don't realize just by you being a civilian creates a bias on how things work. And you being a poor civilian creates another bias. There's so many, okay. You ever look at politicians and say, I'll give you another data, I'll show you how data works. You ever look at a politician and say to yourself, these dudes just make the most impulsive, like they just respond to opinions all day long. And then you go, I hate politicians. No, you know why you hate politicians? Because you operated from a space of emotions and emotions. If you look at the data says it's the public's fault. Because human beings can't deal with waiting for long-term return or long-term gratification. They want short-term gratification, and they're selfish and individualistic. And so at the end of the day, they only want to know what you can do for me now, not for you do for me down the road. And if you talk about down the road and you can't solve the problem right now that's facing my mind right now, then next time your election comes up, you won't get your office back. So every politician get trapped by public expectations of them, so that who you should really say you dislike is not politicians, it's the behavior of the public. That's what data says. Now, if you look at television and you watch and you're hearing all this emotion, all you listen to is affective heuristics, which is my opinion and what I feel. Then all they're going to talk about is bad politician, this politician is bad, Trump is bad, this person is bad. No, Trump is speaking to a large super population that you just don't know that's out there. Mm-hmm. And when he speaks, he's blowing dog whistles all day long, and you're going, how could you think like that? It's because there's a group of people that have a different reality. And one other way that you can also increase your base is start developing understanding of why your enemies are the way they are. Learn to find a human in their decision making, and it will help you see how limited your perspective really is. So you guys keep on going with this, like you relying upon your gut, I thought, that's just cool at the bottom. Like if you're a blowy at a job, go with your gut, go with all the emotional, inspirational shit, go with a little bit of skills, and go with like if you're a manager, take up a little bit of strategy, and we good, because even managers are limited on strategy. Mm-hmm. But when you decide you want to be an entrepreneur and build something and grow something really big or strong, or to pass down to your great-grandchildren, then you have to remember at this point, you're going to have to shift up to a higher point of thinking. And it won't feel natural to you. And you won't. Another example, my partner, one of my partners, well, not partner, somebody I know I'm cool with, he had a company where he was selling hair products. And he was selling it locally, and he was killing it. So he got millions invested in him. He's decided, he could be your cousin, by the way, because you have that deep Middle Eastern background, and he has kind of Middle Eastern background, so he has some similar bone structure features. So he decides he wants to take his product nationally. And I think gay rights, one of the groups had just got the right to marry. So he sends out an email to all of his customers nationwide, congratulating, because mind you, he's dealing with hairdressers. So he thought this is the most safest answer in the world. Hey, congratulations to all hairdressers on the right for gay people, like congratulations to the gay community for the rights to get married. The South fired back. The gay South even fired back and said, what the fuck is this for? I don't want to see this shit. In Florida, they have almost this weird relationship with gayness, which is, I'm gay, but I'm cursed because of the heavy religious focus, right? And so people responses based on different perspective. You say gay community, what the fuck is that? Right? When you get the data, you realize there's so many variations of what that means. So now when you push a product into the market, you no longer say, hey, hey everybody, this here is for everybody. What point did I say, make sure I come back to? I said, make sure I come back to something. I said earlier, make sure I come back to, designs. Now, I'm giving you the biggest one. Okay, I gave you a lot of nuggets here, but here's a big nugget. When working with the public and you want to sell them something, provide service for something, design for the least amount of resistance for your customer. In everything you do. Customers don't want to go through a deep thought process. They don't want to hear a whole bunch of fucking words. They don't want to go through a whole bunch of steps. They don't want to have a whole bunch of fucking phone calls. They don't want to have to read hella instructions to use your fucking items and tools. When you design stuff for the public, remember the human brain is lazy and is trying to conserve energy. For you to make a human being use a lot of energy, this is why motherfuckers come out of college are high intellectual roles. Like I have a brother named Wantari. And if he explains anything to you, it's at least 20, 30 minutes. And the reason nobody likes him is not because what he's saying is right or wrong. It's because he's using up too much of my fucking energy to listen to you. It's that simple. Like if I go out there and I try to get really deep every day, most people are like, hey, hey, dog, I didn't prepare for myself for this. You talking too much. Can you just tell me what to do? Right? That's what the energy of the brain is doing. That's okay for employees. So you have employees, they're like, just tell me what to do. That's the way you have to design for your employees. But for you as running the company, the rules are different for you than it is for your employees. This is so important. This is also the email. Because email's like, yo, don't hire that super thinking person. Hire that person who can just follow these rules perfectly that you wrote up already, that you thought I designed for them, and you made it simple for them to show up every day and perform at the highest level. Don't design it where only a person has to do super thinking and be super masterful to be successful, because that person can never be consistent and they will burn out overnight. But if you design it where like really simple, where, hey, look, I got 20 things for you, 5 things for you to do. They said in chess there's over millions of moves, right? But the average great chess player really works 2 styles of play to death. 2. He may be aware of others, but on any given night, he usually sticks to 2 techniques because that's how the brain works. It doesn't want to think about 300,000 techniques of playing chess. It's like, it's cute to study it for fun, but when it comes time to play it, what do I own? I play the shit out of these 2 styles, and I bring heat with those 2 styles. That's how we move as human beings in strategy. When we're running our business, we're not going to be court Mashama, Nana, Marquita, Kaja, Shakina, Josh. We're not going to be all those in one person. We're going to find our style of management, our style of being an entrepreneur, and we may even have alternative style that complements that allows me to take on this other challenge. It's like if you're in war, you're not going to be the gunman, the medic, the machine, the one guys that operate the machine, the saws, the Black Hawk, the ship, the Aquaman. No. You're going to be a specialist of 1 and 2 or 3 possible things that if you go to war, these are 3 things you're going to focus on this team to achieve this goal. So this is, as you start designing things, the office environment, relationships, plans, goals, always take consideration, human beings do not want to over-engage. That's why when you tell a story to somebody, and you just go, get to the point. It's not about you. They don't have so much energy.
Also, if you listen to the E-Myth, you can, when you hear the initial story, you can hear this pyramid all up and down that story, all throughout that story. What's the lady's name? Emily, whatever the fuck her name is. But you can.
Wait a minute. That was. Can we get this? Can we get a sound effect for the black moment? He said, "What's the lady name? Who in the fuck that lady name is?" Well, you know what I'm saying. I love my people.
Like you can hear this. You can hear the point of motivation, the point of inspiration, the skill point, and she got stuck in her business. And he was like, I need to show you some strategy and some data. Strategy says, where's your processes at? Where's your processes for each thing? Where's your org chart for each thing? Let's work on our business. Now, if we are hella busy and we tied our whole life and our whole business up in skill, we have no time to even think on strategy. So that's why creating time, saying, hey, regardless of how busy I am, I'm going to create time to strategize. I have to. It's imperative. And then data is a whole nother world. But
Well, he actually does a little bit of data work. So this is when he does data work. I want y'all to pay close attention. He goes, I know how you feel right now, but let me share with you a story and some information and data out there. What he says is that what I'm about to tell you ain't going to feel good. It don't even feel natural. It feels counterintuitive. It almost makes sense. When you analyze it, all the information you have is going to say, I don't like that, or it's not going to work. But let me give you some data. Then he drops a quick data moment, and then he brings back to like, when he gets into marketing, he does a lot of data dialogue with her. Because he says to her, yo, when he talks about color or how the brain works, he's like, yo, this is not going to make sense to you, but people don't make decisions like that, right? But because all the parts of the pyramid at the bottom says that we think people are making decisions and that everybody's rational. And he says, no, data says nobody's rational. And data says, if you talk to people, don't even talk to the rational side. Go after this. Or he said, data says you're not in the computer business, you're in the information business, right? But he said these things that says consciously your brain won't process it. And this is where business is. It ain't just those few key things he said. This is the nature. When you're doing business, you're literally thinking different than the public. I can talk the public language, but there's a translation. So like I went to dinner with one of Brian last night, and me and Brian, we were having a discussion, and he's talking about giving advice to like some people he knew. I was like, Brian, that won't work. He's like, what do you mean it won't work? He's right. He's like going over the data, and he's verifying the data with me. I said, Brian, shut up. It's not going to work because you think you're sharing when really when you get to a certain point, you're translating. You can't share no more. You have to translate. So if you're thinking in data, like if I'm moving every day, I'm thinking data. But when I talk, I got to translate. I can't say,
right.
Oh, this is what I really see. This is what it really is. And this is what I really feel. Because then I would make people feel, it would almost feel like I'm crazy a little bit, right? This is where you start feeling like this is when you start thinking that you're a fortune teller. People start thinking you're a fortune teller or you have some spiritual capability. It's because when you're speaking, you're seeing the world so differently that it almost doesn't make sense, your moves. And then when you get to the top of the mountain, even though you made all these weird moves, they're like, well, how the fuck you do that? And the reason people just can't copy it, like I was telling Brian the other day, if Mark Zuckerberg sat down with me, I would just talk about regular shit because his data points are too high for me. I'm not there yet. So even if I heard them, I wouldn't even know how to apply them. It's like somebody came from the future 50 years ago and they showed me an engine design and gave me the tools they had and left and, okay, now work with your car that you have today. I'd be like, what's this shit gonna do for me, right? So data puts you in a different stratosphere of, your base is different. So your base is so advanced that when you run other people, I gotta see your base. I gotta be able to see your base and then speak to the relevance that's within your base.
Hey, I was in the room with Mark Zuckerberg before. I was on a date with a chick, with a woman, no disrespect. And we were in
the Italian, y'all no disrespect.
We was I'm sitting there playing video games in the back of some concert thing. And so I hear them introduce Mark Zuckerberg, and he's standing right next to me. So the woman I was with, she elbowed me. You're an entrepreneur? Why don't you network? Go network. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to network? I'm in between businesses. I'm broke as fuck right now. What am I talking about? He gonna Willy Wonka me and be like, "Here, my son, here's $1 million." So you know what I did? My ass just kept playing video games. He dropped his. He was nervously playing with his bottle cap, and he dropped it on my lap, and I was just like, "Here you go, buddy." He kept playing video games.
It's just. This is why when I see people like, "Oh, you hear what Mark Zuckerberg said?" or "I'm going to go to this lecture with Mark Zuckerberg," I'm like, "Why are you at that lecture?" That's like me studying the art of skyscrapers and then I get a job as a local carpenter. Yeah. It just doesn't. And it doesn't mean that you can't be curious, you can't listen and enjoy the conversation, but you really won't own the context until you're close to that space, right? Unless Mark Zuckerberg is a master translator. Now, if you could translate and understand your environment and how it's applicable and help you make that adjustment or what's the formula. It's called, I call it key knowledge. Give me a key knowledge so now when you speak, I can take it and apply the key and then make it adaptable to my environment.
Yo, I think back on my mentors that I had, and I realized how brilliant some of the mentors I had was. One of them was Hap Klopp. He was the founder of North Face, white dude. He would meet me where I was. He'd sit and talk about Allen Iverson with me.
That's brilliant.
So yeah, and he'd know certain details of Allen Iverson. Yeah, I think it's cold-blooded that they give him such a hard time. Those are his friends he grew up with. I'm like, yeah, those are his friends he grew up with. Like, he just would shoot the shit with me on my level. And then I'm sure 15 years ago, the texture of my conversation was probably so low level that he never made me feel dumb. He just chopped game with me and teach me game from where I am now. That don't happen because once you get to a level where you're generating billions of dollars through what you do, you're in the data space and you can't even kind of see emotional humans anymore. So your language gets different.
Okay. And I'm going to close out on this because I'm getting a little too technical, but that is actually social proofing at its best. So social proofing in the office, this is how it works. So these data level performers, they have a different base, right? And they talk amongst themselves. Talk amongst yourselves. But they talk amongst themselves. And they become disconnected from different groups of people. And then somebody from the outside that looks like those group of people say, oh, we are hurt, or black people don't have enough money, or they need intervention. And what happened is, because they're so far removed, they look at popular opinion and they'll try to talk to you through popular opinion, often not seeing you. But it's not their fault because they're a bad person. They're such at a different level, they can't see you anymore. So they're just using popular ideas, and they may end up saying something that seems so cliche or so corny or so over stimulating. Like I heard an article where they were studying the food deserts. And they were saying you can't fix food deserts by putting supermarkets in those neighborhoods and giving people money. He's like, what? They said because what happened is that a lot of mothers who are suffering from oppression or feeling like they're not good enough or financial level or just the hardness of the neighborhood sometimes give their kids treats because it has emotional impact on their child to continue to parent their child. So if you give them money, they're going to continue to eat bad because they're dealing with they're eating in response to their emotions. And so if you think the intervention is just give them more food or give them more grocery stores. So now imagine when you data and somebody asks you to donate money and you're like, that shit's stupid. Imagine somebody knocking your door and be like, nah, hey, we about to build 5 supermarkets in Chicago because they had a major food desert and can you just donate 1,000? All we need is 1,000 from you. And you like, nope. And they'd be like, what? Mm-hmm. And you're like, it'd be closed in about 3 or 4 years. What? Oh, see, that's why I don't fuck with you. So you understand, like, as you rise in data, you will no longer be popular. Like, let's go back to your earlier point. You lose popularity with a lot of different groups because you're not making a decision based upon Once again, affective heuristics.
Kanye West. Kanye West is all over the place, but he also swims a lot in data sometimes. And when he does, people can't stand him. They think he's tripping. He lost his mind. He's cruel. He's mean. But when he swims around in the data space, he's keeping it 100. He's keeping it all the way 100. And it sounds treasonous in some instances. But if you really think back and analyze what he says in certain instances, it's the truth. It's the data space, which makes him sometimes feel disconnected from the public. But they still keep him in that, still put him in that genius space.
This is why a lot of billionaires and trillionaires and millionaires, upper millionaires, don't come out and do public speaking. Because they're not going to say popular things that fit popular opinions. And because of that, you should also understand that as you grow, if you don't build smart tribe, you're gonna isolate yourself.
So if you're offended by some shit that somebody says who's playing at a high level, you should probably suck that up and listen and ask yourself questions. Why? Why does that offend me? How can I dig deep into that? What can I learn from that particular situation? Because that may be in a blind spot that you have, that if you really expand it, you could grow.
Matter of fact, I think that's what happened if you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs during Trump's reign, that was a very common conversation amongst a lot of high-performing entrepreneurs. Is there something here? Is there something there? Where everybody on the lower level, I hate Trump. He said. And the people on entrepreneur, if you go to when I went to my entrepreneur tribe, it was like, that actually could work, right? And it's the way the world runs and the way you think the world should run is two different things. And the people at the bottom don't have enough perspective, nor do they have data integration to really make an analysis. So when you say, president should do this, the mayor should do this, capitalism sucks, and you keep running down these lists, right? You're not looking at data. You're caught up into affective heuristics, which is emotional thoughts masked as data, and you think, and you could sound very intellectual with that shit. You can sound really impressed. I'm talking about extremely intellectual with that shit. But when it comes down to it, once you take your information and you apply it to like the stretch of life itself, it starts to collapse. This is where a lot of religious people fall victim of, because a lot of religious people don't realize that they are victims of affective heuristics, because there's so much emotions fueled in spirituality and religion. It's so emotionally fueled that you'll stop analyzing contextually because you're overwhelmed by the emotions, and then you just learn to articulate it so well, and then you rise based on the rules of hierarchy. You rise to the top of authority, which makes you a minister, preacher, or whatever, because you're the best articulate justifier of emotional rules, not reality itself. That's a cold fucking game. Because if you take inspiration, right? You can make inspiration spiritual, you can make it purpose. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, right? You can call it inspiration. You can call spirituality. You can call it God. Call it Mother Nature. Call it bigger picture, right? It's a transcending, no matter how you look at it, right? But sometimes we get caught where religions become trapped. Is they get so emotional, they start thinking and they start copying and pasting, and then the person who could take the pasted information and make it sound sweeter becomes the leader. It's a cold game. This is real human shit. But guess what? If I told a group of people who were in effective heuristics, they would become offended because they feel as if I'm attacking their base, because cognitive dissonance says that if they're wrong, then they must be the wrong person in that position.
Here's another thing. Most people only want to associate with other people who are who get lit up by their stories. So if a person who's stuck on inspiration and motivation, they tell a story to a person who's at the strategy level, they'll deduct all that emotion and come back with, okay, this is it. And it's like, oh, you boring, or you don't understand me, or you hating. No, we just you're just on a different place in this pyramid. I don't like that shit, especially if you're in data. That's why people don't kick it with each other. They don't kick it with people up outside of their level because it doesn't feel good. It's oil and water. So if I'm at skill, I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get it. And you want some feel good shit to me, man? Suck that shit up. I don't give a fuck. Suck it up. It's time to get it.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
It's time to work. It's time to work. And then strategy people are looking down laughing at the skill person. Damn, you're working way too fucking hard. Look, if you were to just do this and do this, that'd free you up some time. Or if you were to stop doing this and do that, you're an idiot. Everyone looking down sees the major blind spots and gaps in the one below.
Okay, fuck you up a little bit more. Skill quite often cannot be a leader. Mm-hmm. The most skillful person, for example, we automatically as human beings, we make the story that if you're the most skillful person, then you should be a great leader. When data says a great leader quite often is a person who's willing to, is usually not the most skilled, they're even not the most talented, they are not even the person who makes the best decision in a time of heat. Mm-hmm. They design better systems for people to follow that produces high levels of success, but they may not be known for any of the skillful levels. Mm-hmm. And quite often, this is where we said this in class. The person who's a leader often is a person who's serving the group the most. Mm-hmm. It's not the person who's the most skillful person in the group, but often we will elect the most skillful person to be the leader when the person who was serving the group the most is actually the best leader, and it's proven because a person who's chosen by skill will often destroy and fragment the group.
And even some of you guys out there, and a lot of people who get tapped on the shoulder because they increased their skill at the highest level and they got tapped to become the manager or supervisor, a lot of times that person who's stuck in that skill space will look at the job description and realize it doesn't fit their comfort zone, and they won't take the job. And they come up with excuses. Well, I have to go from hourly to salary, and I'm not trying to take that cut. Or I ain't trying to manage people. I don't like people like that. They come up with hella reasons why they don't want to jump from skill to strategy. But in actuality, it's in their comfort zone. They don't really have the capabilities of a leader. They don't. They've mastered being a skillful craftsperson at whatever they do, but they don't. Those doesn't translate, because in the small time instances where that person does get that promotion and it becomes your supervisor, he don't know or she don't know what the fuck she doing. Oh man, hey, can you help me? Or man, I don't know what I'm doing out here. Like because there's certain things that you have to do that make you not look cool to your old peers.
Yeah, it's like. So let's say you running a company based on skill, and so you parade yourself around your team, 3 to 5 people, maybe 10. And you're like, yeah, I'm the best one here. That's why I'm running shit. I'm the smartest one here. That's why I'm running shit. And what happens often, you're too harsh to run shit because you don't see your people no more. Mm-hmm. Because you're saying, y'all should be like me. And this is what I had to do, and then I expect this is what you should do, right? When you get to strategy, you have to start all over again. And you have to start to learn how to see people, ask questions, listen to people, learn different perspectives, how to lead hands off as opposed to hands on, how not to be the example, how not to say, well, do it just like this. Watch, let me show you. If you can't do it, I do it myself. All that got to go away. And often you can't go for skill to strategy because you build such a personality around skill, popularity, value. Everything's tied up in skill. When you say go to strategy, you got to give up your reputation, your value, your purpose, everything you've been. So if you were Michael Jordan this whole time and everybody's been loving you, you got to put Michael Jordan all the way to the side and start all the way from the beginning as a square.
Do you realize how difficult that is? Because think about it. I'm sitting here listening to myself. If you mastered skill, and now it's time for you to be a strategist and you're a leader, and you're watching somebody fuck up or do something wrong, you literally don't have the language to even explain it. So for you, the mental energy that it takes for you to figure out the words to say without touching it is fucking death almost.
Death.
It's hella hard. And I struggle with that constantly because I'm a tactile person. You put something in my hands, I'll figure that shit out. And to be able to have to tell yourself the self-discipline that it has to say for you to say no, and you have to sit there and use your words to be like, okay, how about you try this and you do this, and nope, with your left hand. That shit is hard, and it takes mental energy for you and the person. But it's necessary, because if you don't do it, then basically you are creating impotency in your team.
And now to go from strategy to data, you got to give up all sense of control. See, strategy, you feel like you got things in control. Hey, I did this, they did this. I pushed this button, I pushed red, they turned blue. Push blue, they turned red. When I turned the thing this way, they went that way. See, you just maintain your perfect strategy. And if you have this perfect order, you run it this way. And then when somebody gets out of place, hey, Court, I see you little upset. What's going on with you? Let me talk to you real quick. Let me inspire you to get you back in place. Hey, look, if you want to get better, I'm going to put you go through these steps here, get you here. This is all strategy. Data says, remember that conversation we had about China? And I was like, we don't know that. You don't know that. We don't know that either, right? It doesn't mean I won't make a decision. It's saying, like, for you say, if somebody says to you, America doesn't, you go, well, that's not necessarily true. Like, what? Well, most people, yeah, but even less people can be more effective than most people. So I don't know what that means. Well, the billionaires, which billionaires? Because there's so many variations, right? And so you start getting into like fine-tuning ideas because you have to align things you don't know. And so it's really the mastering of first principle thinking at its best, which is you remove all assumptions from every decision you make and get down to absolutely what is 100% known and then rebuild from there. That is what data is at its best.
That
It's
takes
first principle thinking.
God, that takes so much mental energy.
It uses up so much. So now go back to you're not exercising, you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right. Now you see why a lot of people fail in that space.
Back when I was a kid in my mom's church, there was this one guy in the church. He talked so fucking slow. Hey, how are you doing, Courtney? And I'm like, bruh, will you get to it? And it would take hella long for him to say, hey, how you doing?
Bruh.
And I couldn't stand being around, because I knew once I get caught, it'd take him hella long. You know what I found out? His wife was Mexican, but when he married her, she knew zero English, and he taught her English. And so he had to slow down his words to speak to her so it was clear. And he immersed himself in that job so much that now his normal speaking pattern is that. Because he's in it, he's not on it. He can't fucking see anything outside of that. So he's so blinded by that skill of teaching his wife English that's his running operating system now. And so that's how we look. That's how we look sometimes when we stuck at any one of these. We look like that dude speaking hella slow, whether it be a motivation, inspiration, or skill. And it's like, yo, really? Like, that's where you at? Okay. Like, and you think in our minds, cognitive dissonance, we think that's good, but we don't. Like, we look like the slow speaker.
Now, let me hit this point too. Motivation and inspiration. The whole social justice movement, all the popular movements are built on motivation and inspiration. Let me show you how this shit works. So in order for us to solve some of these social problems, it's really complex. Human beings are fucking complex ecosystems, complex history, complex economic systems, complex survival systems, complex parenting systems. I mean, complex as fuck, right? Complex as fuck. A lot of testing and a lot of theory and a lot of reflecting has to happen all back to back to back to back, and then building data and making decisions, and some decisions won't feel good, right? Mm-hmm. Fair. Even they were talking about survival of an animal. A human being often will survive. Like let's say somebody was coming into my house and he put a shotgun and I know he's going to use it. I may jump and run into the bullet first to protect son, daughter, wife, nephew, and cousin, because in my brain, I'm trying to protect the survival of my seed. Unconsciously. I don't even know I'm doing that, right? Sometimes human beings will go to war to lose a portion of us to protect the longevity of that particular group. That's not a good feeling. There's nothing that says, I'm going to send 100,000 young men to death so we have a chance to reproduce and protect our survival as a species. This is what human beings do all the time. We protect our survival by sacrificing ourselves. It doesn't make any sense. Like, for example, it's even war, a lot of times, me and him can hate each other in civilian life. But at war, as long as I know he'll protect my life, I'll protect his life, and I'm willing to lose my life for him. Split second. Even though we're not of the same seed, but in our brain would automatically say, if we're fighting together, we're of the same tribe, and if he lives, our seed survives. This is what our brain does. There's no motivation and innovation in that. That's a data point that your brain has these natural data points that's programmed into the survival. Your brain survival techniques is super sophisticated. With that being said, Nana, when you spoke to me, this triggered me. I was so depressed. You hurt my feelings. I was so disappointed. I don't really like when you say mental filtering. I don't really like, I think when you said this, it hurt. I felt all that feeling shit you hear at the bottom. It's at the bottom. It's at the bottom of the game. So when you see on TV and NPR or VPR, Victim Public Radio, when they playing all this victimized shit that's happening on Victim Public Radio, because it's not national, it's just victim. All they do want to do is talk about how somebody got victimized. Never talk about how to fix shit. Just, oh God, everybody's dying. Oh my God, it's not fair. Oh my God, she had 3 kids and she barely could survive. Oh my God, he was homeless and his nephew died. Oh my God, oh my God, right? That whole world, as you engage it, you don't even go so far because it's too emotionally heavy, and you're blinded to. You have to become weighted and know how to flip the switch of thought and flip it back to emotions. Flip it back to switch. Like, for example, let me keep it 100. You having some wild sex with your loved one, man, you better go into your emotional space and enjoy that shit. Keep it 100. Don't get data. Don't get into data. Don't do data.
Well, the data says this position is much
data.
more pleasurable.
Hey, go let all your emotions dictate every position you jump in and every little freaky thing you like. Go straight emotional. If you're on a romantic date and it's just a one night, have some fun with your significant other, enjoy that shit, right? Are you playing with your kids sometimes? Don't go data. Just be in that emotional space with your daughter, your son, or whoever the fuck it is, right?
Yeah.
You with your grandmother, and she's like, yo, come back here, come to my church, baby, and sit with grandma, and I want to tell you a story. Man, you better go straight motherfucking emotional. But with your family, sometimes you have to go data. You say, what do you mean? I have a black cancel family before canceling was a thing. You piss me off, I don't fuck with you no more. You piss me off, I don't fuck with you no more. You might say, well, what do they do? Outside of molestation, you could be something like we disagreed on some shit. Now, molestation is different. But what family really is a survival tool for a human being. That means we ain't gonna always like each other, but we're gonna have each other's back. That means we don't get to cancel easily. That means you gotta shift that, even though you wanna tell your cousin, man, don't ever come to another Thanksgiving dinner, fuck you, I don't like you, you're your stinking ass dog, ain't you? And your whack ass kids, right? You don't get to say that. Data says, I'm trying to gel a strong family that will help the most weakest of us and the potential strongest of us weather the storm to reach its highest capabilities. That means the family has to have so much flexibility into it to adopt imperfections to get that damaged child or that imperfect child, that distorted child, to a higher height. So if a family is rigid and is all emotionally rigid, it will throw out the baby with the bathwater. But if you can shift the data points, then that family becomes a strong institution that says, hey, we don't agree, I'm going to forgive you. I can do the prodigal son thing. You cannot be the prodigal son if you're all emotions with a family. You got to be able to shift back and forth to data. Because sometimes you have to make a decision where, fuck you, I'm mad as fuck right now, but data says this should only last for a day, so don't go too far with this.
Also, too, here's a tool, how to jumble this around. You can use data to help you out of depression. Because some of our healing tools tell us that when you're in a state of depression, you magnify negative emotions. I'm a failure. I fucked up. I'm horrible. I'm this. You this. Or you always do this or you never do that. I always fuck up. But if you include data in those self-talk conversations, you can say, well, is that true? What's the data on that? Do I always do that? Is it true that I do that? Like, can I prove that in court? You're including data even down in the depths of your depression to help you climb up, because the inspirations, because you're trying to climb up to the inspiration space. The motivations is too fleeting. It's 7 seconds. It's 7 seconds. So you're trying to climb the inspiration. Inspiration space is where self-love, self-forgiveness, self-value lies. So if you can take that tip of that pyramid and bring it down with you in depression and just start stating facts. Well, wait a minute. I don't always fuck up. I only fucked up really once in that particular, and that was just that. There's hella times where I did good. That one. So now you're like, okay, that is changing my whole psychology and my whole perception about where I am right now. It's not that bad. And if you use data down there, you'll realize that most of the shit that you're exaggerating ain't nearly as bad as your brain is trying to tell you.
Yeah, matter of fact, you can even break down what causes depression and what are the typical tools to heal depression, and start on a regimen that you won't even feel it. You won't even like it. But you'll know that if I just stick to it, it'll ease up. Because you can actually calculate the next moves, even though you're feeling. So you could be in depression, walking out of depression. It may take 1, 2, 3 years. But on that walk, you'll have a direction as opposed to just wallowing at the bottom. Let me say something about inspiration. A lot of ministers are leading congregations of inspiration. Just are. You just are. Right? A lot of churches are. Not all religions. Some religions can rise up to raising higher levels, but most of the time, most churches are raising. The danger of being a minister over inspiration is going to trap you in inspiration. And then you're an emotional fucking washing machine. You're left and right. You don't know where you are emotionally, right? In order for you to properly lead inspiration, you got to rise up. Because if you don't rise up, then what's going to happen is that you're going to get caught with effective heuristics through rationalization, which is going to alter your rationalization, and you won't know which way is up. And so when you're working with people of inspiration, that's why when I work with people of inspiration, I deal with that space cautiously. I would never join anything based on inspiration. Because if I start to buy into this whole idea of just oversaturating myself in inspiration, because once again, you will be impacted by your base. And if your base is inspiration, if you want to be a great leader of people who are inspired, that's why, why do you think Les Brown goes after motivation? That's where most of the people are at. This is why a lot of these popular speakers are doing all that motivation. That's where there ain't a lot of people up here in the data area. And the data people, now mind you, there's specialists who work with data people, and they get paid. They may have 3 clients and filthy rich, right? But they're harder to get to. That's a tight-ass level competition. Only the best is going to be in that category of strategy and data, right? As you get to skill, you got coaches. Inspiration and motivation is most of the people who are teaching business, life coaching, people who are teaching self-help. They're into motivation, inspiration. And a lot of people, and that's why when you actually meet a life coach, they sound a little bit better than an motivational person, but they still don't tap into the higher levels.
Yeah, I was about to jump on that whole seminars and life coach. A lot of times they're so good at tapping into and triggering the motivation and inspirational parts of you that in your brain, you acquired skill, strategy, and data. Then you walk out of that motherfucker hell of excited, juice, thinking you can take over the world. And when that inspiration subsides, you realize you didn't gain any more skills than you had when you walked in there.
That's so fucking true. It's the rule is that this happens to you when you read your books. So you'll read a book right now, and the book might have strategy and data in the book. And so when you close the book, Shanice, hear me out. Scott, hear me out. Tone, hear me out. You guys will close the book and be motivated to get down. And here's a sad part. Let me tell you what stops you every time from carrying out the strategy and data. Life jumps in the way. Something happens. And all of a sudden, that data and that strategy falls way in your trash can, way back here, and you back to following the rules of inspiration and motivation. So you will have a temporary window that you could run through, but you can't run through it because you don't have the skills to get through that window. And so because you try to skip the process by, I read this deep-ass book by this person, Nana, and I feel like when I read the book, my mind was just, it was so inspired with no reflection, no testing, right? Because through the skill engagement of testing and reflection, it becomes strategy tools, and later on becomes data tools. Then later, but data is a strategy too, because data's something else. But like you read these books on strategy, not data, because you can read the books on data, and they become magic tricks at a party. Did you know that if you do this to a human being, they do this? Wow, dude, that's pretty deep. Yeah. I read this one book about it. It's just amazing. It'll blow your mind. Pow. But anyway, I go back to work tomorrow at 8:35, and at Walmart when we be there early tomorrow because I got to open the doors and say hi to everybody. This is literally the separation of life and the material you're reading. Where you're reading these books up here, you use them as talking points, but your life is really way the fuck down here, if not even in depression, right? And so what you'll find is that life jumps in the way so fucking fast that if you don't reflect quickly and start testing right away, that's how you build your skills. Like, for example, if you teach Alonzo Ball had the worst jump shot. I think he was shooting like 28% from three. He's now at 42% in 2 years. But every summer, he just went and practiced shooting. Like, got in the gym and got crazy with it to the point that he went from 28 to 30-something to 42% three-point shooter, right? What it is, somebody introduced him, because his jump shot was from here. He shoot just like this from the side of his head. He eventually got his jump shot where it's kind of coming from here, right? It's kind of a push, but still, it's right around here. Somebody gave him data. But like Ben Simmons, you get somebody data, and then mama call, friends call, oh shit, we have a party over here. Oh, you signed up for this. We need you to be here to sign your name. Oh, remember you told this person to get over here? Oh, your kids haven't seen you in a couple of weeks. Oh my God, the house. Did you talk to this person? Hey, the lawyer just called the other day, and guess what? You don't go to the gym and practice. So you read all this inspiring information, but all you have is you still at the bottom because life jumped in the way. And so you literally have to redesign your life so you can grow the knowledge you're picking up. Because if you don't redesign your life, every time you close these books, the books become reduced to, yeah, that was deep what that book said, but then I had to take care of this. You're fucked.
Yeah, data is a beautiful feedback loop at every level. So think about this. If you practice, if I say, hey, what's going on with your hoop game? And you're like, hey, I'm in the gym. I'm getting it in. For real? Yep. Shoot, I shoot 600 jumpers a day. You shoot 600 jumpers a day? Man, you a beast. In your mind, he's a beast. That's Lonzo Ball. He's in the gym his whole childhood shooting 600 jumpers a day. There was no data feedback loop. None. To say, that's a shit. That shot don't make, that form does not make a lot of shots statistically. It doesn't. Because most of his shots was coming from alley-oops, dunks, layups, and every once in a while, he throws some shit up and it goes in. But his overall skill was great enough for him to make it to the league.
But that doesn't describe data the best, right? There's a rule in basketball that says basketball players can't really tell you about basketball because they don't see data. They see strategy and skills. Right? Yeah. Where somebody with data is looking at the numbers and going, hey, actually, if he just makes 6 points a game and you make 12 and you make 25, you'll win almost every game because data says you'll win. Even though when you play in the game, it makes no sense. Right? And so for a successful team, they have to literally stick to the data, fuck your emotions, fuck the day when you say, today I feel like I scored 40. No, you score 6, make sure he gets 12. Right? And if you ask players, you're like, hey, why do you think the Warriors won? They'd be like, well, because this happened, and then KD came through. Well, hold on. I was telling Mashama, I said, okay, if you look at basketball from data, Steph Curry is amazing because he runs the whole game. No one does. Watch any superstar player. They take rest off. Steph runs, right? So if he's running the whole game, of course he's going to get hot first, second, and third possibly. Now, based on basketball shooting jump shots, he's also going to have cold games. That's the nature of basketball. That's the nature of jump shots. You can't be super hot. The level that he's been hot is so abnormal that he's such a rarity in the sport because the data says that's not even close. So the reason he can not be, it's a chance he may not be a great closer. He just ran the whole fucking game. And the reason a lot of times the person is guarding him, points go down, because they've been running the whole game after him, right? The reason you need somebody like KD to close the game or somebody to close the game, because you reserve energy when I use all my energy to get us here. So for me to say you're more important than me is not looking at it from data. That's looking at it from a person who's in the skills going, well, when I see KD do this, he hella tight. Data says, no, the way this game was played was hella tight. He just happened to be one of the key, his specialty was this, and when we call on him, he's a master delivering, so we applaud him for that. Doesn't mean he's a secret sauce.
Yeah. I used to be, I still am, big-ass Allen Iverson fan, right? Whenever, and during the whole Allen Iverson run, but whenever I would talk about AI to real basketball heads, they clown me. They say, he ain't never going to win shit. He's just going to do all that shit, running around with that isolation shit. He always going to get into it with coaches because he's not a champion. Because statistically and strategically, they're right. I still love him. And so now it's funny when youngsters talk to me like, oh, I don't care. I just love Russell Westbrook. I just love the way he played. I don't care. He a dog. He a dog. And I say the same shit. Yes, he a dog. And I see why you love him, because I've been caught in that conundrum too, but he ain't never going to win shit. Because he's so stuck at skill, he will never peek his head above strategy and data, ever. So now he has no perspective of working on the game versus being in the game.
I mean, if you look at basketball, you'll see this pyramid.
Absolutely.
You'll see this pyramid, right? You'll see the new player who just got brought into the NBA. And he had motivation, inspiration. He's ready to go, right? Most players come in new to the game, motivation, inspiration. You get some players come in, they're skillful, absolutely skillful, right? Somebody like LeBron has strategy and skill, inspiration and motivation, right? But what LeBron doesn't really have is data. Like they say he has access to data, but data is where your coach comes in and all those smart guys sitting there with clipboards and the GM who chose the team, the scouts who went out and found the team, the calculation. When Vegas says, hey, we looked at the data, this is what we think who's going to win based upon this data that we're pulling back. We looked at a plus minus of 124. When they give you all that number, those are things that you just can't sense when you pick up the basketball. When they blow that whistle and the ball's thrown up for jump ball, that data stuff, you can't feel it. You have to be able to step far back from it and look at the numbers and calculate and watch film and look at. Once you do the math, you go, "Oh shit! All we really need is a point guard that can get this kind of shot once a game, and we'll fucking win the NBA, right?" But if you tell somebody who's playing every day, be like, "So you won't tell me to do this to score 6 and we're gonna win a championship? That's all you gonna tell me? What about what I'm doing, coach?" And so when the players come to the coach and a team like Kyrie or James Harden or Durant or Westbrook, a lot of basketball players, they're really skillful, but they always making these arguments of, fairness and blah, 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 and I felt, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, Dwight Howard, I'm not sure. They're all making these emotional, inspirational arguments. And the reason they don't get their career to go where it's supposed to go, because they don't understand the higher levels of what this game is, or they didn't submit to the one who understands. So, for example, you pay for Popovich. Popovich is coming at data. He's running this whole game on data. I don't give a why you celebrate. Get back. Hurry up. Matter of fact, I saw that last night. Poole dunked, and Draymond Green ran back and said, "Why are you celebrating? Like, you just made a dunk. Get your ass back here. You scored a point. They gave up a point. That's even. We broke even. There's no room for celebrating, right?" You start to understand, if you watch basketball, you see the data to motivation pyramid, you start saying, oh, this shit is beautiful to watch.
In dating, in relationships, a lot of times this pyramid is perfectly placed as well, because if you run across a situation and whoever gets in your ear, they motivating and inspiring you, right? motivating and inspiring you with a skillful whatever. Y'all engage, it's skillful. Now, a lot of times strategy comes into play where a person thinks, I think I can change this person or I can fix this person. This is going to be my strat. And everyone has agendas. I mean, folks have agendas in terms of how they're going to approach this relationship. And they miss the signs. They don't look at the data, because the data says it's not going to fare too well, because this is what the data is saying. But look, I'm good. I'm good. Like, they ain't been with a person like me before. I got a strategy. And guess what ends up happening? The strategy fails. But it might be too late because you got to get kids, whatever, because we don't look at the data. We don't look at, and our strategy is poisoned by our emotion and our ego and our desire to want to fix and change something. You can use this pyramid in almost every aspect of your life.
Matter of fact, that business partner, I had a guy call me this week who has a horrible business partner. Like, I'm not getting into all details, but she's just horrible. She's in motivation and inspiration and depression. She's just horrible. But when I'm talking to him, I'm like, hey, partner, no offense, can we start talking about her? And he said, why? I said, because you suck, not her. He said, what do you mean? I said, because you chose her. I said, you didn't use a strategy or data to make a decision. You in some emotional space. I say, if I didn't know no better, I think she hella fine and hella thick, because the kind of decisions you're making, you always trying to fix a motherfucker. I say, when you try to fix a motherfucker, that's cool in your personal life. I can tell with some of your ex-girlfriends you was trying to fix them. But when it comes to your money, you got to get back to strategy and data. Right? And so this pyramid is so fucking powerful. I really wanted to take time and come back. This is one of the classes where we just stuck on one fucking subject, the whole class.
Oh, this is fire.
But I want folks to understand, Cordis introduced this about 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, I can't remember. And since then, I've been able to align it into real life. And if you're an entrepreneur, go to this slide here, Marquita. Go to this slide there. If you're an entrepreneur, this is how you should be built. This is how you should be built.
Absolutely.
You flip the triangle upside down. You're emotional. You have inspiration. You have skills. You have strategy. But you understand it's the importance that data is the most important thing you should work towards.
Yeah, that's dope.
That's the way a healthy entrepreneur that's going to scale, that can have long-term commitment, and can build something for their great-grandchildren will be moving in this direction. The other way around, if you set it up where that motions is your heavy point, inspiration is a heavy point, and then as you get closer to data, because I think ultimately everybody has a little of this. I think there's points where we all have data, right? Mama may have data when it comes to raising babies. I've seen, my wife Shakina, Mama Linda, Ayana sit down with me and tell me something about raising kids that is totally counterintuitive to me. And with my daughter, I'm totally in a motivational space. I'm like this with my daughter. I'm straight. What you say, baby? Fuck my thoughts. Okay, this is what you want? And then she'll be like, hey, babe, come on now. And I'll be like, fuck, man, this is rough for me because I'm all motivation. I'm all emotional with my daughter, right? And I think we all have this, but when it comes time to build and create, we stay in this rhythm when we should move to this rhythm here. And this reason, when you're in this rhythm here, me and Brian is a close friend of mine that loves to argue, and he's very extreme in his dialogue. He's not extreme in his thought. He just talks from extreme. So if someone's saying, I'm going to come over your house, I'm about to blow that motherfucker up. You're like, you mean you coming over? Yeah, I'm coming over. You're like, God damn, what are you talking? So even when he's talking about business, he goes to extremes, and you have to be like, yo, bro, calm that shit down. Now, mind you, we got into a deep conversation. I'm not crossing that line. But we got into a debate last night where we're going back and forth. And no one got mad. And we challenged, it got personal, some of the challenge. He's like, you know what's weak about you? I was like, oh, bring it, right? But it wasn't like, fuck you mean what's wrong with me? Well, what about this? And when he came with his point, I said, that's your success assessment, huh? It's unfortunate that's your assessment because I can guarantee you that's a limitation of your perspective. And let me share you with, and we just kept going back and forth. And I would make a comment about him like, you have a tendency to show up in this space here. And we make these comments, and it was an intense space because with him, I can't talk the way I talk to Court. Like Court, I can just stay in data and kind of remove the personal stuff because Court don't really go there. But Brian goes in the personal space. And so I got to go personal with him to back him up, then so I can get back to data, right? But the emotional side was very low. And in the end, we was like, yo, bro, I love that conversation. That was hella tight. And when I left him, I was like, ooh, this cat makes sure he makes sure I'm buff before I show up to our conversations. I got to know my shit. Because he's going to come at me with a lot of engineering, science principles, because that's his thing. And if I don't know my shit, he'll overwhelm me, right? So when I walked away from him, I was like, ooh, that was a cool challenge because I got a chance to test my strength and see where my weaknesses are and where I need to work on myself, right? And I was like, I texted him like, yo, man, thanks for that battle, right? Because it made me stronger. We got to do this shit again sometime, right? I'm in that space. But if I was in this space here, we wouldn't got past the first 10 minutes of that dinner. Would have made it, or we'd be like, let's just change subject. I don't talk about that shit no more. Hey man, let's go. Let's just talk about man. Fuck that. Hey man, how's your wife doing, man? I don't want to talk to you about that shit because you be talking crazy.
Hey, I'm in the gym the other day, and I see it, and I had my mask down, working out, and a brother walks by me, and he stops, and he had a Hebrew, he was a black brother with dreads, but he had like a Hebrew shirt on with a scripture at the bottom with these like fringes at the bottom of his shirt. And I just looked like, oh shit, one of them like Hebrew Israelite type brothers. And he was like, Courtney. And I was like, what's up? And he pulled his mask down. I'm like, oh shit. He was like a kid that was used to be around my first company. So we talked, hey, what's up? So I'm like playing with his fringes, like, what's up with this shit, right? And so he's like, I just be trying to teach people out here, we original people, Israelites, and he goes and just off on this rant about how black people are the original Hebrews or Israelites and Jewish people, or they say ish because of this.
Sorry, Josh, calm down.
Sorry, Josh.
Josh,
But
I don't want no problems, Josh.
All right. He got canceled on speed dial.
He got hit he got a special hot button to cancel the Jew cancel line.
So he goes in. He goes after it. He goes in. He breaks it down to me. So I'm like, so I say, okay, so if all that shit's true, what does that do for you? What does that gain you? Do you go and get like, do the Jews cash you out? Or you get this superpower? If I say, I agree, you're right, what does that do? Fucking nothing. You still, where you work? I drive truck, I drive vans. You still gonna do that? If you took all that energy, you caught in the emotion, and you acquired so much skill in this basic ass shit, you spent hella time acquiring skill, learning about all this history, the Hebrews. You went down this skill pathway, and you spent years down this skill pathway because you got skewed data and you were emotional about where you come from, that it really mattered, that at the end of this road, this rabbit hole, you got nothing still. And that's the thing. A lot of us, we have high levels of skill in shit that means nothing.
Social justice.
We've done hella research or learned hella things and practiced hella shit when you could have damn near just learned how to play a video game. It equates to the same shit.
Social justice.
So it's like, that's why you always got to be using that data in every one to be a feedback loop for you to be like, oh shit, am I on the right path? Like, what does my GPS say? Here's the thing. The beautiful thing about GPS is this.
Yeah.
It's all data, no emotion. So if you put an address in your GPS, I want to go to 510 Media, and you're in San Leandro, and you driving, hey, make a left here, you make a left. Make a right here, you make a right. And you're like, oh shit, I got to stop at the store real quick. And you make another right when GPS told you to make a left, and you pull in the parking lot of the store. The GPS don't be like, what the fuck? Like, damn. I told you to go left. Oh shit. See, that's why it just reroutes and tells you where to go again. Okay, boop, boop, boop. That's where you are. Okay, make a right. It doesn't care about inspiration, motivation, feelings. It's straight data. And data is where we always need to be to align ourselves with the truth and not get caught up in emotions. If we take a wrong turn or we fuck up, GPS doesn't say, you fucked up again, didn't you? You know you done fucked up. Oh, I see where you at. You at this person's house again. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm telling.
As soon as you turn the car on, he fucking around. He fucking around.
I'm gonna send her a text right now. It just gives you the next logical step in the goal that you set. That's the beauty of data.
And you might, so I know somebody's probably sitting at home and thinking that we're trying. I know there's a method out there where some of you guys came from that world where you used to say women were more emotional than men. And you thought that some people are just pure data and some people are pure emotional. That's not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is that you're mostly emotional all the time anyway. This is what it is.
All of us.
Right? If you say right now, I don't like this, I do like that, there's emotional elements in almost every decision you make, in every touch point. In order for data to be effective amongst human beings, it has to take into consideration their emotions because that's part of the equation. Their dislikes, their likes, who they are, their background, their history, their culture. So actually, when we say respond to the data, that means you have to have a high level of empathy, insights. You have to listen. You have to care. You have to see other perspectives, right? It doesn't mean you look at some external data that has nothing to do with you and say, because some things that have to do with you don't know the effects of car smoke because it's always car engine exhaust because it's always been here. The only way you're going to figure out if the impact of car exhaust is look at data. Without data, you can't even deal with global warming. We don't even know global warming even exists and how to show up to it. We need data to even know that, the reason it didn't rain in California a certain kind of way is because the earth is heating up and it's disturbing the natural flow of systems. You won't even know that you can't cut down this particular forest or you can't kill this particular animal because it's going to be damaged. Without data, you can't see the big picture. Without data, you're small picture thinking at all times. Even when you choose somebody, if you think about data, you're thinking about survival of your seed, protection of your kids, protection of your happiness, long-term happiness, protection of certain values. But if you don't have any data, you don't think about happiness. This is why you break up every fucking week.
Yeah, you'll pick the most attractive person, the most beautiful person, the person that you feel, the person that you, man, when I'm
so
around that
alike.
person, we just
I can
feel
feel
each
you.
other.
Feel me?
Man, I'm so excited around that person. But if you're not thinking strategically and from a data perspective, you can end up making the wrong moves.
Like data says, no matter how fine this woman is or how fine this man is, they're going to age. But your brain doesn't accept aging. Your brain thinks the way you feel at 29 is the way you're going to look at 40, 50, 60, 70. And so when you make decisions today as if you're going to be the same person at 50, 60, 70. When you understand data, you realize, I probably should save a little bit. Like, okay, for example, if you're not using data, you can eat a donut a day. One donut a day. If you're using data, you know that within a certain amount of years, you're going to have diabetes, you're going to be fat as fuck, and you're going to have a whole bunch of host of problems from just one donut a day, right? But if you're not thinking through data, you don't see the consequences of your daily actions. You're only weighing your actions against how it made you feel, right and wrong, and how your surrounding responded to it. And that's pretty much all you have. That's a cold motherfucking game that most people can't handle. Do we have any questions online? All right, let's hit it because I think that's all we're going to be talking about tonight is just the pyramid upside down, right side up, and we'll come back to E-Myth next week. Are we open next week? That's the last class next week, right? The 24th, you said the week before? We'll look at the calendar after the questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Earlier, Estelle had asked if there was a such thing as too much reflecting.
I think we answered that by saying if you're reflecting, you got so smart because even data helps you balance that. Data says your kid don't care about that deep intellectual breakdown. You try to parent him. You got to take this deep idea and simplify it to a simple emotion or response, a simple A/B solution, right? Kid doesn't care about heuristics and cognitive dissonance and cognitive distortion and all these other big ass terms and the complexities of them and the pyramid and how you take this pyramid home to your 14-year-old, 12-year-old, 10-year-old, 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 7-year-old, 5-year-old. You don't understand the rules of data. Data says your child wants the path of least resistance. And so data tells you how to balance when you show up emotionally and when you show up with data. Data lets you know how to show. Like if a CEO is forced to speak on television, he knows damn well he's not going to talk data talk. He's going to get into the skills, strategy, inspiration. He might not do motivation, but he's going to get in those spaces because he realizes. So he'll say some stuff like, when I was young, I want to share this story. When I was young, I grew up on a farm and my father didn't have much. And I dealt with fear probably like you're dealing with fear. And here's some choices I made. Now, he's not going to get into like how to magnify that choices into a multi-billion-dollar organization because he's going to lose you, right? And then here's the other thing too. I would say, if I had to give you a fast answer, the fast answer is run towards thinking when a decision matters. Like if you had a barbecue and you want some ribs or chicken, and you eat pork, you eat beef, you eat chicken, and what do you feel like tasting? And then eat that. Or you with your loved one, they're like, what do you want to eat tonight? Don't get into like, well, let me calculate. Okay, I've had Chinese food 107 days. If I add 3 more days, it could possibly contribute to this particular cancer, which if you do it over 5-10 years, Indian food. No. What do you feel like tasting? Now, if you're eating pizza every day and you realize, something's off about me, tap into your data side. Don't tap into, well, you know what, I feel like I just need to change. Have you ever talked to people like that? When you're trying to have a deep conversation about, they like, no, I'm suffering from something. You're like, well, I know that you're suffering from something, but you're going to have to go over this hurdle, and it's going to hurt. Shabisha did that, remember? I was like, go over this hurdle, it's going to hurt. It's not going to make any sense. But the other side is going to yield you this reward. And the first thing she did was, but I'm scared about getting hurt. I don't know if that's the feel. I didn't like it. Okay, once again, you can't get out of that space from emotional inspiration. It's you too deep in the mud. To get yourself out of that hole, you got to tap into data. Now, doesn't mean that when you're not training, you see somebody cute, you can't flirt, right? Doesn't mean that when you're there, you don't one day, a friend says, can I talk to you? And you be like, fuck it, I'm going to lose this one day of workout. Because data says, one day of workout every purple moon has no impact on your overall exercise routine, right? But if you're in an emotional space, that one day of working out, missing out, may depress you and make you miss the next 2 or 3 weeks because you feel like, I just can't. I see I'm fucking up.
I can't. Every time I try something,
it just always fails.
Yep.
So you see what I'm going like? So data actually, that's why I said the reason you want to be you're more data heavy is because you are having emotional experiences, but your data is your flashlight.
And let me tell you what I've been lightweight doing this whole time. When he says a quote, look at your bank account. That's saying look at the data. You talking we own all this shit. We talking all this shit. Saying we doing big shit. We thinking. We reading. We acting. We're engaging. We going for it. What does the bank account say? That's your data. If the bank account doesn't say what you want it to say, or it's not ramping up in a way that's showing improvement or progression, that is your feedback loop to say, I got to change my strategy.
That can't be no clearer than that.
I got to change my strategy. That means I got to get more skilled or do I need a better strategy? That's it. That's how we use it. That's when he say, check your bank account. That's what he's saying. Go to the top. Let's go to the top. Fuck all that other shit. I hear your story down here, but let's go to So when he seems rude, go to the top. Go to the top. Well, let's go straight to the. How many floors is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go to the 5th floor. We're at the 1st floor right now. Let's go to the 5th floor, because you know I'm a 5th floor kind of dude. So what does the 5th floor say? 5th floor says, fuck, money ain't good. All right, cool. Then everything you're telling me right now is bullshit. That's the reality. That's how you move through. Flip side again is when you exaggerate your emotions, take the data from the 5th floor and bring it down with you. All right, what's the truth? And that will help you climb out of that depressive state faster.
And or what I dealt with some of my more advanced friends. I'm gonna ask them what's in their bank account because they're strong there. How many relationships you have? How many friends you have? Oh, you by yourself, huh? So these are the best way to move through life. Isolated. That's the goal of life. To be by yourself. To spend all that money to buy shit that only you can enjoy. Get the fuck out of here. Go ahead.
Tavita's question, does radical responsibility challenge the outcome of data?
Absolutely not at all. Matter of fact, that data is an act of radical.
That's radical.
That is
Yes.
radical responsibility. Data. That's why most of y'all can't do radical responsibility, because you guys live in this space of affective realism. So affective realism says, well, I don't like the way that feels, Nana. What about it this? What about that, right? Radical responsibility says, hey, this technique right here will 9.9 times out of 10 will allow you to win. Mm-hmm. Is it absolute? There are cases where it's not absolute, because it might be a strategy where you don't take it on purpose because you're playing the game of catalyst, right? Well, that's a whole different strategy that's a higher level. But in the beginning of this growth stage, you start off with that because what it does is it increases awareness so you can see reality for what it is as opposed to what you want it to be. Because it allows you to it's a quick shortcut to help you like navigate a lot of realism versus social realism. So they're not a contradiction. And matter of fact, I can almost promise you the reason you kind of like halfway engage radical responsibility is because you can't do data. When you do data, you realize I'm not going to in order for life to be great, data says that the human brain cannot embrace, the human brain can fall in love with the grandchildren, but cannot even imagine or embrace the great-great-grandchildren. Mm-hmm. Your brain doesn't even know. Like, so if I say, let's do this move for your great-great-grandchildren, your brain be like, I hear you, but I don't know what that feels like, right? Data says that in order for you to preserve the survival of your group, you're going to have to make sacrifices and do a lot of shit you don't want to do and participate in a lot of things that's going to feel unfair. But if you're in inspiration, motivation, and you function from a space of effective heuristics, those three are they're almost impossible. Because I just told you sacrifice. I don't like it. I don't feel good. Something about that doesn't make sense to me. I tell you that things ain't gonna be fair. I don't know, Nana. I don't know. Do things you don't want to do. Nana, I know, it just doesn't feel good. I'm gonna go over here because this is what feels good to me. Mm-hmm. Right? So the entry to that kind of conversation is take responsibility for everything that happens to you. Mm-hmm. And that early dance is an elementary dance to a path towards getting you into the kind of thinking that help you get the data.
Purest form of radical responsibility is up in that data space. Radical responsibility starts as strategy, but it gets pure cocaine at the top of that data space. You feel me?
Last question comes from Fern. She says, it sounded like someone said purpose is in the inspiration space. So how does purpose tie into these higher levels of ascension? So just kind of ... So we use data, strategy, and skill to propel our purpose?
Purpose is foundational again. Purpose is foundational. Purpose means I do not feel like waking up. That means you crashed. That means your data, strategy, skill set not working. I don't feel like getting up out of bed. Your purpose, which is foundational in that inspiration space, is what makes you get up.
Look, okay. I'm gonna use data to explain it, but I'm gonna translate it. when you walk away for certainty is based upon limited understanding or your experiences. So you say, hey, everybody believes this, so I'm certain that's true. When you get the data, you realize everybody believes that is only 100 people to 150 people. Maybe the best case scenario is 1,500 people. Your brain doesn't even want to process anything outside of that. All other cultures, histories, and background doesn't exist. So when you get to data thinking, you realize you can do whatever you want to do for whatever reason you want to do it while you're on this earth. It's that crazy. It's that loose. Purpose creates a foundation of who are you here to serve? If you say, I'm here to serve my brothers and sisters, you can't serve everybody. You can't even show. That's why I said manhood is tied into purpose. Because a man is not an abstract idea. It's based upon what you do. But what you do is measured based on what you tie it to, because what you do is irrelevant to some people while it's relevant to others. You get where I'm going with this? So purpose gives you a foundation to define who you are and where you're going and why you're doing what you're doing. Like, cats who operate in data still operate under an umbrella of I'm serving something. It's a hierarchical game. Hierarchical game says, the hierarchical game, it informs human beings how to exist in groups. And the hierarchical game says this: pebbles in dirt, plants, animals, human, God. Right? At some point, you got to say, well, we get to the human stage, which human am I serving? Which needs? If you just took all humans, that's unlimited needs almost, right? Like if somebody in certain parts of China has something different than other parts of China compared to somebody in Russia, compared to somebody in Africa, compared to somebody African Americans, compared to Latino Americans, compared to Asian Americans, compared to Europeans, compared to poor Europeans, compared to Irish, compared to Italians. You know where I'm going with this? And there's billions of people on this earth, number game. So you can't serve everybody purpose. And most people won't welcome you to help them with their purpose if you haven't taken care of your own family and your own responsibilities. So if I come to the courthouse and be like, yo, court, I'm going to help you solve all your problems. And court says, oh, shit, okay, thanks, bro. What problems have you solved before? None. I'm just going to help you with yours. Court be like, man, if you get the fuck out of my house, right? What qualifies me to talk to court is whatever I achieved before I even arrived at court doorstep. So your foundation, inspiration, purpose is, why am I here? What am I here to do? Based upon what culture or tribe I'm aligned with. You don't get to float and be like, I don't connect to anything. That's a theory that human beings play with that comes from effective heuristics. That's not realistic to human existence. Humans is a very herd tribal animal that anchors himself in something. Quite often, if somebody says, well, I don't want to be tied to any tribe, I just want to do what I want to do, that's you trying to practice escapism.
Yeah, that's some fear.
That's fear and
Rejection,
escapism.
yeah.
You're not taking ownership, and this is why you can't mature into whoever you want to become, right? So whether you're a woman, man, gay, straight, tall, short, your purpose gives you a direction. Otherwise, you're just turning your wheels. It's like imagine having a water hose, and the world's on fire, and you have a limited amount of water. You got to figure out what you're going to put out. You try to put out anything, you did nothing. You guys going with this? Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, you have to sit to yourself and say, oh, shit. So manhood in the black community, manhood in the Mexican community, manhood in the Canadian communities, manhood in Asia are going to be different based upon the needs of the culture. Asia is a culture of we. So maybe my manhood, I don't know the understanding of manhood of Asian culture, but maybe in China, my manhood requires for me to connect to the system and play a supportive role. American manhood is small tribes. And so even though we have a bigger ecosystem that we call America that we all tap into, we all define ourselves by how we show to our small tribe. So if you are African American and you performing really, really well with your small tribe, other groups will say in America, we respect you. We see what you're doing with your small tribe. You perform, right? But if you try to come up and say, I'm going to help everybody, people are like, I don't even know you, dude. I don't even like you. You ain't going to tell me shit. Fuck you. You don't know where I came from. Don't disrespect me with your old outside intervention bullshit. It's not possible. It's an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
But data says that's an illusion. So the more you get close, and mind you, I know it's unfair because some of y'all going, well, damn, Nana, you're playing with data. We don't understand it. We're trying to reduce your perception of your limitations by thinking that, oh, Nana, if I just make money, I'm cool. Oh, Nana, if I just start my business, I'm cool. Oh, Nana, it's almost like different. Like you got a friend and he or she's overweight, and you want me to throw a party because you joined the gym. You want me to throw a party because you've been in the gym for 2 or 3 months. You want to throw a party because your last 2 weeks with your trainer, you've been sore. You want me to throw a party because you finally reached a milestone in your training. I throw a party when I seen 10 years of commitment and you own it and you've seen results and you happy with your results. I'm willing to celebrate that. But I am not about to sit up here and start celebrating, oh my God, I just joined a gym and Nana, I'm about to change my life. Oh girl, I see, you go, you are amazing. I see you, you are amazing. I always want to be like you. You are fabulous. This is why the rest of our family, we all look up to you. I always want to be you, blah, blah. That's that bullshit we see all the time in our community. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you ain't said shit. Mm-hmm. You celebrated nothing. Mm-hmm. And then when they fall, that person goes into shame and depression. You go into gossip mode. And you gossip so hard that you don't even try because you're like, if I fall, you're going to be talking about me. You see this vicious ass, like the crab pulling the crab down? This is how nasty that shit is. Mm-hmm. Where with me, I'm like, oh, you about to get into this? Hey, just know at the beginning, there's some mean shit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, nah, you all intellectual and shit. Oh, my God, all that thinking shit. Mm-hmm. Why can't you just be happy for me?
Yeah.
Hey, in Hindu religion, they call purpose dharma, right? In dharma, what they say is when you tap into your dharma, that's when you connect with the God in you and you become the God. Without dharma, you're flailing around because the power that you gain from dharma, purpose, creates self-disciplines in you that you would never use in regular life. It creates leadership in you. It creates long game in you. It's so many attributes that come from really living in your purpose that you don't even recognize you. There's certain things, because I say I'm a wild boy, right? I'm a wild boy. But if I'm in my purpose, it's things I wouldn't even blink at. I wouldn't even fuck with it. I wouldn't even touch it with a 10-foot pole if it interrupts my purpose. Why? I don't even know why. I just know that's the way it is. And I'm not fucking with my purpose. If it's even the realm of fucking with my purpose, I'm a different human, because that's how powerful purpose is, and that's why you should always be firming up this space. You should be firming up this area where you tapped in spiritually to your creator, your higher power, whatever you call it, and your purpose, because that way, that gives you a firm foundation to where you maneuvering through skill strategy and data, you can say, okay, shit, all right, okay, now I'm gonna go back up. Like, you can maneuver up and down, but if those are weak, you slipping down into depression.
Look for the Christians in the class, my Christian peoples. He said, yo, how do I serve God? He said, go by helping your brother. He didn't say, okay, man, you asked that question. I got this book that's going to be full of friction to get there. Some of us believe in this pointless spirituality. I'm spiritual, Nana. I'm just so spiritual, and I just don't help them. They don't help nothing. Don't show up for nothing. Don't do nothing. They just hide behind, I'm spiritual. Don't blame spirituality for your flaws. Stop wearing a mask called spirituality when at the end of the day, you just a loser, lazy-ass loser. When I used to say I hate spirituality, it was not because I don't respect, I've given spiritual people as podcasts in this class. I'm like, yo, this cat's tight, right? Because he's connected. He's part of this ecosystem of our existence. He's connected to this ecosystem. I'm like, yo, look at this. And they operate in the space of data and strategy, but they also go into the spiritual. They got this full like totality and balance. I'm like, this shit's amazing. Then I hear this person claim spirituality as escapism. Hey, hey man, come out here and help me plant this tree. My spirit just won't let me do it today. Feeling like I prayed last night. I tried to help you. I thought about helping you, but what you just did to me is you use spirituality to justify, once again, effective heuristics. You made a decision on emotions and you blame spirituality. When you have a purpose, it makes you do things you would never do for yourself. But because, especially when you tap into data, you're going to read some things about data that's going to say, you got to do this because you got to go to war and fight for your people and put your life on the line. There's a rule. This is a dope-ass rule. This is a concept. So remember I said I share things about building nation building. The rule says a nation can never protect itself if the young men are not willing to die for the nation. That's a rule. Once the young men decide they do not care about dying for the nation, you are open season for anybody. You are vulnerable for destruction. So when you have all these young black men walking around without any purpose, there's no guards at the gate. So when white men come in and shoot you in the streets, all you can do is pray and cry because you have no men at the gate. And how do you get there? How do you get men at the gate? In order for men to come to the gate to serve his people, they have to be valued by the people that they're serving, and they have to be loved by the people they're serving. If they feel valued and loved, they're willing to give their life for those people. Do you see how purpose is all 360? Mm-hmm. It's a simple system. Mm-hmm. But this is the rule of, if you just study human beings across the world historically, when the men say, I don't give a fuck, which is I don't have a purpose, I'm not connected to this culture, I'm just here just to get mines, get money over everything. When we tell young men to buy into money over everything and fuck culture and call everybody niggas, don't see no blackness in any of us, don't see no value, don't see no history, don't see nothing in us. They just niggas out there. This nigga go against this nigga, fuck all these niggas, this nigga here don't give a fuck. When you get into that space, you do understand black women, you do understand black businesses, you do understand black governments, you do understand black educators, you do understand black leaders, black spiritual people. There's no security for you. So you got to call the white man security to protect your household because you don't have men on the block that's willing to die to protect the values and standards of the culture. This is the rules. This ain't Nana. This ain't no pro-black shit. This ain't no Nation Islam shit. This ain't no I sat down with Farrakhan, he gave me some game. This is the rule of humans across the board. If you don't believe me, go study the history of all cultures. All wars are fought by who? Young men who are willing to die for what? Their nation. And one of the first things they tell you is one of the ways that a young man becomes a man is when he goes to the military and has to sacrifice his life for something greater than himself, which is his purpose. Clear as hell, right? We good? Everybody good? Because Court went to the restroom and he didn't say, we didn't draw no strings, we didn't draw no, he just took, I got to go to the restroom, he got to go, that's messed up. All right, we cool online? We cool in the house? All right, with that being said, I'll see y'all was it next week? We here next week? No class next week? That's fucked up. I ain't gonna see y'all next week. Hey, happy thanks taken. I ain't calling Thanksgiving because I'm a respected indigenous people. I don't want to speak disrespectful to my indigenous folks. But although I'm gonna just share my story, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but I do go see family members because we have a day off. And then Shakira family, they be cooking their ass off. So they be cooking all kind of food. I'm gonna eat my food. But I tell you what I do is, I fast until the sun goes down on Thanksgiving in respect to all the people who were massacred in this nation. And that might be just a tradition I have, whether it's valid or not, but it's just my respect for life allows me to fast to say to those who lost their life in this country, including my ancestors, I acknowledge you, and I see you, and I think about you, and I care for you, and I love my life for you. So that being said, hope y'all have a good Thanksgiving, and go love your family. Don't argue with your family on different views. Fuck that right versus wrong. Focus on love because you're not going to be here forever. And the worst thing in the world is you on your deathbed, you by yourself, and there's no COVID, and you at the house by yourself because you don't cut everybody the fuck off. So turn that social justice soft ass effective heuristics to fuck down. Go love on everybody. Go hug everybody. Go hug them, everyone, except the molester. Let the molester die. But everybody else, go hug them, give them love. Have a great holiday. I'm going to miss you guys. I will see you when I get back. I'll drop some podcasts for you. And with that being said, we out.
We love you.
Yeah.